Hey, good morning, everybody. It's Tuesday morning. Beautiful day outside. A little chilly, obviously, but got my long sleeve on today because it's chilly in here as well. We're I understand there's still problems with the homework, and a lot of you folks couldn't download the homework. I know, I understand that. So I'm going to skip going over homework for this morning for chapters 1 and 2. However, if you need the answers, they're also listed on the same page as where the homework's located. Unfortunately, that's not working very well, so we're going to have to skip the homework review this morning. And if we do get it fixed today, we'll review it tomorrow as well as tonight's homework if that's working. So a couple quick announcements before we start. Once again, my name is Tim Jensen. I'm your instructor. I'm the Monday through Friday daytime instructor. Few announcements of please, no recording of these classroom sessions. The Real Estate Commission is restricting any and all recording regarding the pre-licensing classroom. So please, guys, no audio or visual recording of this presentation, and this is a live presentation. Also, please, in our discussions, please, no posting of any links of any type in our discussion. We've had trouble with people posting very nasty things or things that caused our computer system to have problems, and we want to avoid that. So guys, please, no posting of any links while you're online with us on our chat room. No foul language during our discussions, that would be expected. And if you're having connection problems, a couple things you can do. Number one, first of all, close out any and all apps and programs running in the background of your machine that you're using. That tends to take up bandwidth that this program needs desperately. Also, you can always refresh your page at the little semicircle on top of the page. It has a little arrow on it. Click that, it resets your connection. You just have to log back in. If you're offline for 5 minutes or 10 minutes because of a login issue, it's not a big deal. But if you miss more than half hour at a time, chunks of time, except for our breaks, then that is a problem and your attendance will reflect that. And if you have any administrative questions regarding how to find something, where to go to get something, what process, where's my test, score, whatever you're looking for, homework, resources, your tracker, and all that other good stuff, you can always go to recareercenter.com and look it up. Usually that's all working. Or you can wait till noontime when Lauren or Noel will pop on and discuss and answer all your admin questions. I don't know anything about what they do in the office, guys. So if you got admin questions, I'm not your guy. I will stick around after every day for any additional questions about real estate topics not discussed during the day. If you have questions you want answers to, I'll stick around. And as always, I post my email address at the end of the day. So if anybody needs to contact me, I'll make that available to you. We take 3 breaks during the day, one at 10:30, one at noon, and one at 2:30. The one at 10:30 is a half an hour. The one at noon's an hour, and the one at 2:30 is a half hour. We may have a slight change in schedule today. There's a good chance that a fellow by the name of Chris Stern from Edward Jones will come on for about a 45-minute presentation. We do this as a school to help you guys understand the impact of working as an independent contractor and how to financially plan. I think it's a well worth time that you can spend with Chris to get an idea of how to plan out your future as an independent contractor. If that's the case, I'll know hopefully within a half hour, and I'll make an announcement that we're either taking a break or not taking a break. He's coming or he's not coming. So hopefully we'll understand that within a half hour. So, and one last comment I always make at the end of the beginning of every day, and that is, if you could, and I please ask you, please pre-read the chapters before you come to school. It makes a much better discussion. We're not going over concepts 3 or 4 times again. So by pre-reading, you'll get a basic understanding. With our discussion, you get a much deeper understanding, and you'll have a better level of retention, and you'll do much better on the test. But if you don't read the chapters and you come in cold, then everything's brand new, and then you have questions which other people already have pretty much answered, and kind of bogs down the session, And we don't want to do that. So when we're discussing these things, guys, if you do have questions about topics being discussed, then make them pertinent to the topics being discussed. Do not come up with the what ifs and under what conditions and how do people think about that. That has nothing to do with passing a test. The information being presented is factual. It is the information you will be tested on. So just understand, if we wander off in the what ifs and under weird scenarios and all those variables, and you know what, it doesn't work. And that's not going to be tested on. So just remember, stick to the information in the book. We'll do well. Are there any last minute questions before I start presentation of chapter 3 and 4 this morning? Sebastian, you have a question. A couple of people typing, so I'll wait. I have a funeral to attend to on Thursday. Would taking a weekend class make up for that? You have to take the class that you missed. So look on the recareercenter.com/schedule and find out when this next offered. Adriana, no, as you listened, I said we have a half-hour break at 10:30, an hour break at noon, and an afternoon break at 2:30 for 30 minutes. Was there any other questions before we start? Marissa, Laura, and Mark Badia, you guys have questions? I see you typing, so I'll wait. Guys, if your dialogue bar is open, I'm waiting for your questions. So if you have your dialogue bar open and you have no question, then you're just delaying the class. So please be conscious of this. Marissa, Laura, are you typing a question? And Mark, are you typing a question? Okay, just, boy, apparently you guys don't get here at 9 o'clock. You already made all these announcements. Yes, you can always make up the homework. Correct, Mark. Laura, what are you confused about? Is it now? Hang on a second. Okay, apparently not. No, you don't turn in the homework, guys. It's you for your study guides. That's all. I'm not collecting homework. No, you don't turn it in. It's yours. I know you couldn't get the homework because I made a statement earlier. We were having trouble with it, so we're not going over it this morning. Guys, this is the importance of getting here on time. Please understand, I don't want to keep repeating myself. It just delays the class. So let's move on. Chapter 3. And if you have other questions for administrative questions, you can ask them at noon for Lauren or Noel. But we're starting Unit 3 now. Agency, brokerage, and ethical considerations. At the end of this chapter, you'll be able to identify types of agency and fiduciary responsibilities, as well as describe the broker-salesperson relationship and compensation issues. So you're also able to discuss the disclosures to sellers and buyers relating to creating agency and providing material information. And also, you should be able to describe misrepresentation, Consumer Fraud Act, antitrust laws, ethical considerations, and disciplinable offenses of consumer protections. In other words, we got a lot of ground to cover today. So, without delaying, let's get busy. So, brokerage. The title of this chapter is Agency, Brokerage, and Ethical Considerations. So what's brokerage? We're going to go into agency in a minute, but what's brokerage? Well, in fact, brokerage in the real estate business is bringing buyers and sellers together in the real estate marketplace. There's no other way to describe it except that brokers bring buyers and sellers together in the marketplace. I have a house for sale. I'm attracting a buyer to it. The housing marketplace is where buyers and sellers sell houses. My job is to make sure they get together and buy and sell those houses. If you're in the mortgage industry, a mortgage broker, his job is to bring lenders and borrowers together. So brokerage is the business of bringing buyers and sellers together in a given marketplace. And in this case, we're talking about the housing market. Brokers must be licensed to assist others in real estate, as we talked about yesterday, and can receive compensation for those services. So once again, in order to collect your fee, you must be licensed at the time a deal is made with and under the supervision of a supervising broker. Then you can get paid for your efforts. There's several different roles in a broker organization. First of all, before I start a conversation about broker roles, I'm going to ask, what is the difference between a customer and a client? Anybody? What is the difference between a customer and a client? Now, if you've had this course before and done this chapter before, you already know the answer. But if you haven't, maybe you do. So what do you say? What's the difference between a customer and a client? Customer, a new person. You represent the client. Client signed contract. Customer, a potential client. Client, you have fiduciary responsibilities for. Customer, you don't. Client is a person you are representing as a seller's agent, buyer, or a seller. Customer just buys a good. Client is a customer you work for. Client is principal. A client is someone who's already with an agency. A client is someone with a fiduciary. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate the input. And many of you guys are close to defining what the difference is between customer and client. Here's the basic difference. A customer is someone you work with. A client is someone you work for. In other words, a customer is anybody who's just looking for information. I'll give them information. I'll work with them to supply them information. But a client, I'm working for the client's best interest at all times. I have fiduciary obligations. In fact, in order to function as an agent for a principal or client, which is interchangeable, I have to have some sort of agreement authorizing me to work in that manner. So let's understand. The customer is someone you work with, and a customer is someone you work for. You're given direction, you have a signed agreement, you have fiduciary obligations. A customer, you're just giving information out to, maybe doing a couple things for, but not really working for their best interest. Commission is the money we earn for doing our job, obviously. Now, when it comes to the words salesperson and agent, a lot of people get confused. Somebody, an agent, goes and gets a listing. And when queried, people want to know, hey, what does the person think about? And the agent always says, my client says this about that. Well, first of all, understand the client or principal must have an objective. Why did they hire you? The client or principal must have an objective. Why are they hiring you? I want to sell my house, or I want to buy a house, or I want to rent an apartment, whatever. Therefore, by having an agreement signed between the client and the agent, you can form that relationship. 11:30. Thank you. All right, so Chris Stern from Edward Jones will be joining us at 11:30 for about a 45-minute presentation, which means I'm going to work through the break this morning. There will be no coffee break. We're going to work straight through. So when 11:30 Chris shows up, he's got you for 45 minutes. Then you'll take your lunch break after that until 1 o'clock. And then at 1 o'clock, we'll resume our normal schedule. But again, it's well worth your time to sit and listen to Chris and participate in the discussion. You may find new ways of making or saving money and preparing for retirement as an independent contractor. Just an aside. All right, so now that the client or principal has an objective, they hire an agent to accomplish that. In real estate, as we discussed yesterday, it is the broker who has the authority to form those relationships. Therefore, the broker is the agent to the client or principal. You, as a salesperson, work under the authority of the broker and are an agent to the broker. He's your principal. You work for the broker. Therefore, when a client signs an agreement with the brokerage, you, the salesperson, are a sub-agent of the client by working for the broker who works for the principal. Did anybody not understand what I just said or have a question about it? Please let me know. So who is the agent in that scenario? As I just said, Kira, it is the broker, and it is always the broker who is the agent of the client or principal. Always. Yes, Tanya, broker, correct. I still don't understand how a customer is someone you work with. Well, we haven't formed any kind of relationship. I have no obligations. I'm not working for their best interest. Until they agree to hire me as their agent, then I'm still just considering them a customer. The word principal is defined here as essentially a superior, someone who hires an agent to work on their behalf. Yes, Philip, they would be the pretty much director, if you will. Okay, not seeing any other questions. Let's move on. So a salesperson works for the broker who is the agent to the principal or client to earn a commission. The customer is someone who any agent or broker could work with. I'm representing the seller at an open house and a buyer comes in. That buyer says, I have an interest in the house. Before I can do anything, I have to first of all understand he's still just a customer. I don't work for that buyer. In fact, I'm working for the seller. Even though he's a customer, I'm still going to treat him with respect, trust, and honesty and tell him the truth. I'm not working for them to get them the best deal. I'm obviously working for the seller. So in this case, the customer is someone who is looking to do something but has not hired an agent to work for them. And there's a lot of people out in the market, they think they know much more than realtors do. I love it. I really do. It's the best conversation I love to have. Why should I hire you for all the money you're going to charge me? Oh, that's a question that I love to discuss, but I'm not covering it now because I don't teach you that. Your broker teaches you that. So I can work as a buyer's broker, a seller's broker, a transaction broker, or a disclosal agent. We went over these 4 scenarios yesterday afternoon. But I want to go over them one more time because it can be confusing if you don't know about the different types of agency and relationships that we have. First of all, I can work as a buyer's agent only, meaning I represent the interest of the buyer and I'm working to achieve the buyer's objective of getting the best price, terms, and conditions in a deal. I can work as a seller's agent, where the seller would hire me as their agent to get the seller the best price, terms, and conditions in a deal. I can be a disclosed dual agent working for buyer and seller in the same transaction, so long as both parties and all who are in the deal sign disclosure forms consenting to me working as a disclosed dual agent. And then there's the transaction broker, as we discussed yesterday, has no fiduciary obligation to a client whatsoever. They're just doing something for a fee. So these are the four brokerage relationships that can occur under the New Jersey real estate laws. The different brokerage roles all interact to achieve that objective at some point. So then, what is agency? If we understand what brokerage, what's agency? Well, first of all, agency is where someone, a principal or client, hires another person, an agent, to work for their interest. I need you to help me sell my house, so I will sign a listing agreement authorizing your broker to be my agent to market and sell my house and attract buyers and negotiate for me. I want the highest, best pricing terms and conditions that you can get me. And then that is my job as a real estate broker, to get them the best price, terms, and conditions, because they're hiring me as their agent to do just that. Which means as their agent, I have certain fiduciary obligations, and it's a fiduciary relationship. So what does that mean, fiduciary? Fiduciary comes from a Latin word, a root word, and the word is fidelis. You may have heard that Marines have a saying, semper fidelis, which means always faithful. Marriages fall apart because of infidelity. Someone's not being faithful. So you're being put in a position of faithfulness, trust, and confidence. And whatever the client's objective is now becomes my job to accomplish. I want to sell my house, then my job is to get that house sold. And I have those fiduciary obligations, being put in a position of trust and confidence, and to be faithful to them. I'm going to discuss several of these later. So that I can do my best job, and the client always knows that because of my fiduciary obligations, I'm always working for their best interest. In fact, by being hired as an agent to represent a principal or client, my interest, the commission, is secondary. My job now is to do what is right for the client. And if that means sacrificing my commission somewhat and taking less, I still must do my job for that client, take less of a commission. Some people don't like that. I want more money. Well, your job is to do the job that you agreed to do. Your income is generated as a result of doing your job. So the better job you do, hopefully the better income you can generate. So understand, guys, as an agent, you are out to accomplish what your client wants you to accomplish, whatever is in their best interest or what their objective is. And as I said, agency is a role of trust and confidence. And there's different types of agency. You could be a universal agent or a general agent or a special agent. First of all, a universal agent, you're probably never going to work in as a real estate agent or a salesperson or broker. In fact, I would try not to work as a universal agent in a situation where I'm hired as a universal agent. What does that mean, universal agent? It means being in charge of everything for the client. Now, I'm not just talking about selling their house, I'm talking everything. A power of an attorney. A power of attorney is a document signed by a person to authorize another person to work as if they were that person to take care of all their issues. Currently, I work as a power of attorney, also known as an attorney in fact, because of the power of attorney document. Even though I'm not an attorney, I'm still working as under a power of attorney for both my parents. They're both in care facilities, and I have complete universal control of everything about their lives. I'm required to look out for their medical, financial, spiritual, physical lives. I must do what is right for them at all times in all scenarios. Therefore, that power of attorney gives me universal agency over their lives. I can do whatever I want, but it must be in their best interest. In real estate, nobody's going to sign a universal power of attorney to you to take care of their estate. You'll just take it. You could. But again, that's what universal agency is. There's special agency, the polar opposite, meaning you're being hired to do one thing and one thing only. And almost all real estate transactions in New Jersey for residential real estate are done as special agency relationships. People call you and say, I want you to sell my house. That's the objective, to sell the house. So I'm being hired to sell the house. Or people will call you to help you buy a house. And my objective is to help them buy that house. My job is to see that they get a house that they want to buy. I have one job to do and one job only. Help them buy, help them sell, help them rent, whatever the case is. So 99.99 times out of 100, agents in New Jersey work as special agents. So you may see a question on an exam. What is the most prolific type of agency relationship? And that would be special agency relationship, hired to do one thing only. But then there's a general agency as well. A general agent is, an example would be a property manager. If you're a property manager, you have many areas of which you're responsible for. Let's just go through a couple of them. Let's see, a property manager, let's see. First of all, they have to advertise and market the apartment complex to attract tenants. Then they've got to screen those tenants and do background checks and credit checks. And then they've got to either check them in, receive rent, security deposits, care for the security deposits in a proper account, make sure the tenant requests are handled, maintenance, make sure all the required repairs and maintenance are done on a regular basis. They have to check those clients out when they leave, or those apartment dwellers have to check them out when they leave the apartment. Then I have to account for them in security, how much they're owed, what damages were occurred. I have to do budgets, maybe pay bills. I have so many areas of responsibility, but I don't have universal control. Therefore, I'm a general agent. I have many roles to do, but not complete, and more than one. So understand, in real estate, most likely you're going to be hired in almost every case as a special agent. Special agent Tim Jensen. Yeah, get a little badge or something. I don't care. But yeah, you can call yourself a special agent because technically that's exactly what you're being, a special agent. Was there any questions about these roles or what an agency relationship and the different types of agency relationships that are? Who employs property managers? People who need their property managed. But I don't see how that, okay, but guys, don't announce you're late. That's, please don't do that. There's no reason for that. All it tells me is that you're a half hour late and may be in jeopardy of losing credit for the entire morning. Just saying. So please don't tell me that. Sebastian understood who employs, no brokerages? I don't understand the context. Can I go over general agent a little more? General agent is one who has many areas of responsibilities or objectives to accomplish, but not total control, and many more than just one. A special agent is where you have one objective to accomplish. That's the difference. Is there any other questions or clarity? Do brokerages employ property managers, or can anyone be with properties hire? Okay, so that's a question for another chapter, which we will discuss, Sebastian. So I'm not going to answer your question now. It will be addressed in another chapter. So please be patient. We will get to it. Remember, there's 21 chapters, guys, we have to go through, and we'll get to them. So Anybody else with a question before I'm moving on? Both you and the broker are an agent, or are you a sub-agent because you're under them? As we discussed earlier, Normandy, the broker is the agent to the client, and you are an agent to the broker. Therefore, you're a sub-agent to the client. And Marissa, did you have a question? If a client wants you to sell their home as well as find them a new one, would that be considered special even though they are two objectives? You're going to be hired in two different roles. One as a seller's agent to sell their house. But you're, as we said yesterday, you can work in more than one capacity with the same client at the same time. In other words, they also want me to help them buy a house. Then in that aspect, I'm working as a buyer's agent to help them. So I can work in one role in this aspect to sell their house, and I can work in another role as a buyer's agent to help them buy a house in another aspect. So I have two special agency relationships with one client at the same time. So universal agency is connected with a general agent? No, completely opposite. It is not connected as a general agency. So what's a dual agent? I'm sorry, guys. Maybe some of you guys weren't here yesterday, or some of you guys didn't read the chapters, which all of this is explained in. So if I have to now start explaining basic concepts, dual agent works for buyer and seller at the same time in the same transaction, as we discussed several times. Was there any other questions before we're ready to move on? I don't see any, so let's move on. Fiduciary responsibilities. What, as an agent, do I have to be responsible for when working for a client? All right. So there are definite agency responsibilities that you need to know about so that you need how to prepare to work with people as their agent. The first one is called the duty of care. As an agent working for a client, my duty of care means I better know what the heck I'm doing so I can serve the client's interest. If someone asks me to sell their house and I've never sold a house before, then I could never exercise the duty of care. One of the things, as I said yesterday, and I usually say all the time, is go out and start interviewing with brokers. Find one that's going to train you. If you can't find one that's going to train you, then keep looking. Because unless you get trained, you will never be able to exercise the duty of care when someone wants to sell their house, or when someone wants to buy a house, or whatever else the scenario might be. Therefore, you have to learn how to do the job to exercise care. When I was much younger in the business in the early 90s, a client who I had sold a nice luxury home to said, Tim, I like the way you work. I want you to sell my business. I said, no problem. Let's meet at the business at a certain time and location. He said, yes. Then I ran back to my office to find a guy who I know who had done business sales. And they said, hey, John, I need your help. And I told him what the scenario was. He goes, so you need me to train you as well as counsel you on how to sell the business? I said, yeah. Well, then he said, well, I need 35% of your paycheck for that. So I figured 65% of something's better than 0% of nothing. So I said, yeah, you got a deal. So he actually, while doing the job, trained me on how to sell businesses. So then after that job was done, I could practice selling businesses because now I have the reasonable duty of care that I know how to exercise with my client. If someone asks you to do property management, you've never done it before, then don't do it, because you can wreck somebody financially all 6 ways to Sunday. You need to learn how to do property management correctly to do property management. So guys, I'm being very serious when I tell you, go find a broker who's going to train you on how to do these business things, working with buyers, working with sellers, working with tenants and landlords, whatever. so that when you do have an opportunity, you can capitalize on it. But if you don't get the training, then you would not be able to exercise the duty of care. And it's very important you get the training. So let me reiterate one more time. Go out and start interviewing with brokers and ask them, what kind of training do they give their salespeople? How often do they update their training? What techniques do they emphasize? Who does the training? Do I have to pay for it? Do they pay for it? What's the scoop? And everyone's different. So go out, interview, and find a broker you think you know you're going to get along with. And then when you get your license, go work for them. But again, it takes your effort to go out and interview. I can't tell you who to work for, guys. In fact, I'm not allowed to even reference companies or differences in companies or talk about companies in certain ways, because that could sway you in your decision. I'm not allowed to do that as a licensed instructor. So go out, make some calls. Maybe you need to do some Zoom conferencing as an interview or whatever, but go out and interview these brokers to find out how they're going to train you. That's one of the questions I told you to ask. So exercise the duty of care as a fiduciary of a client. Number 2, the duty of obedience. Your client wants you to do something. If it's legal and it's ethical, then you do it, if it's in the best interest of that client. However, if he doesn't want you to do something that seems, well, you shouldn't do that, then you better not do it. What? But I got to be obedient. Well, yeah, but you have to use your brain too. Following orders is never an excuse for shirking responsibility of a job. Well, I just did what they told me to do. So what if they got screwed? I just did what they told me to do. That's not a good defense, guys. After World War II, NATO held the Nuremberg trials, in which they held Nazi conspirators guilty for their actions. They tried them in court. And many of the defenses was, I'm just a soldier following orders. You can't blame me. That's what we're talking about. Just because you're following orders doesn't mean you're doing the right thing. Yes, we need to be obedient to our clients. If they have a legal requirement or thing that I must do and it's ethical, then I'm going to do it. But when they tell me something to do that's not legal or ethical, then I must confront them and say, that's not right. Remember, there's a third part of this chapter that many people forget about. It was about brokerage, agency, and ethical considerations. Ethics are defined as doing the right thing. Therefore, if your client orders you to do something, if it's the right thing to do, then you do it without question and without hesitation. But if he orders you to something that's not ethical, then you do not do it, and you let him know why. An example. Mr. Seller, we have a buyer and he's very interested in the house, but he asked me a question that I didn't know the answer to. He said, there's a crack in your foundation. Is that a structural issue? Tim, it's a structural issue, but don't tell him that, because if you do, he's going to run away and we're going to lose the sale. But Mr. Seller, I now have to tell him that, because if it's a structural issue on the property, that could affect its material value, dollar value, and I must relate that to the client. But I don't want you to tell him it could hurt my selling price. Well, I'm sorry, but I'm duty bound by the rules of agency to do not only what you want me to do, but I have to also do what's right. And in this case, I must disclose, and we'll talk about the duty of disclosure a little later. But I don't want you to, but I must. If you don't like that, I'm sorry, but that's the law of agency. I must do what's right and ethical at all times. But you're not being obedient to my wishes. Well, your wishes are not very ethical, then, are they? So then we do have to have that conversation to let people know that I must do whatever the client tells me to do, so long as it's legal and ethical. I have a duty of accounting. People are going to give me money. Yeah, baby. Cash, money. Yeah, gimme, gimme, gimme. Now, some of you, and I have never met you. You're not on speaker. I don't see your pictures. I could care less. You could be at home in your PJs. I don't care. But at some point, if you're getting into the real estate business, someone's going to give you cash or a check or a money order. You have a duty to account for that money. Accounting, obviously a financial concept, says that when we do handle money for clients, we must do what is right and deposit it into the broker's trust account ASAP, certainly no more than 5 days, because if I don't, then I'm not actually safeguarding those funds then, am I? And I must make sure that that entry into the ledger book of the trust account is clear and accurate. So I can show the client with a receipt that their money was deposited in our trust account in a specific time frame, and here's evidence of the deposit, so it is safely kept until we need it. So the duty of accounting is strong in the real estate business. There's a lot of money floating around out there. Accounting also infers accountability to be held responsible for your statements and your actions. Now, I've had these discussions with many people, and it is unfortunate we live in a society where accountability is so cheaply come by. Nobody wants to be held accountable for anything. It's always something else's problem or something else caused it. Nobody wants to take responsibility. However, as a real estate professional, you need to take responsibility for your actions. If you tell someone we're going to advertise in a certain format in a certain way, then you better advertise in that format in that certain way. And if they question you, hey, I don't see those ads, then they must hold you accountable for what you said. I was listing a house in Montclair years ago. It was probably around 1999 or 2000. It's a $3 million estate. And as I was listing it, I was talking to the seller. I'm like, what kind of description do you think we should use for the master bedroom? Because there's this beautiful view of Manhattan. Only one of the few homes in Montclair that has a view of Manhattan. It's gorgeous. And he said, I want you to put in the description that it's a $3 million view. And I'm thinking, so what's the difference between $1 million view and a $3 million view? Obviously $2 million. I said, how do we justify the $3 million? He says, someone's going to pay me $3 million for the house. So actually, yeah, he's being truthful. I need to be held accountable for my actions, so I'm going to put in that ad, and I did a $3 million view. So people, when they did call me, I'm dying to see this $3 million view. Come on over to the house and I'll show it to them. I sold the house, listed it and sold it myself in 60 days. That was a nice deal. And I was my own broker, so I didn't have to split the commission check with a salesperson. One of the benefits of being a broker. However, I have to be held accountable for what I say. So the buyer says, how did you come about this $3 million view? I said, how much you paying for the house? $3 million. So again, that's a very weak example. But again, I have to be held accountable for my actions and my statements. If I say I'm going to advertise your home in the New York Times every Sunday for the next 6 months, there better be an ad in the New York Times every Sunday for the next 6 months, or my word is not worth anything. And in this business, guys, your word is everything. In fact, if you're not a person of your word, your reputation will quickly precede you, and no one will want to do business with you. And if you doubt me, then talk to your friends about real estate agents. They're going to tell you, oh, there's some guys out there I would never do business with. This is the names. They're going to tell you who those people are do business with. Why? Because they can't be held accountable for their actions. They're innocent all the time. It's not their fault. Care, obedience, accountability, or counting are the first three fiduciary responsibilities. Did anybody have any basic questions about these so far? I'm not seeing any, then let's move on. The duty of loyalty, especially when it comes to confidential information. As a realtor, guys, I get a lot of personal information I really don't want to know about, but I'm being told this by clients. Or motivations for why people do things. They tell me sometimes, and if I repeat that, I could harm their position. So I took a listing one time, and while we're taking the listing, the seller tells me this: Tim, just so you know, the wife and I are getting divorced. And if that is relayed to anybody out as a buyer, they find that out, well, guess what? My bargaining position goes down the tubes because they know I got to sell, and they'll undercut me on the price, and I'll have to sell for a lower price, and that's not going to do me any good. So during the time you have the listing, Tim, you're not allowed to tell anyone we're getting divorced. And I didn't. Now, it just so happens I did not sell that house while I had it for 6 months, and it expired, and that seller decided to go to another broker, which is fine. But about 3 weeks later, I got a call from a buyer. Hey, you still have that listing? I said, no, it's with another company, but I can still introduce you to that property if you're interested. Yeah, I'd like to go see that. Tell me anything about that property you can. Well, now I'm no longer working for the seller. My fiduciary obligations to that seller are ended. So now I represent the buyer. Therefore, I must do what's right to find the buyer the best price, terms, and conditions, right? So the question is, do I tell them about the divorce now? Many people would say, of course you do, because you're working for the buyer. Here's the problem. I learned that information as a confidant of the seller when I was employed as their agent. Meaning I learned some very confidential information that was told to me in confidence and told not to repeat it. If I were to violate that now as a buyer's agent, then my word is nothing. A lot of agents would say, guess what, they're getting divorced. Let's go in there and lowball them and get a deal. If I were to do that, I just know I'm the guy they're going to say, hey, aren't you the guy we told we're getting divorced? And did you tell your client? And they're going to say, yes. And I'm in trouble. The duty of loyalty even extends after the agency relationship ends. Just like, believe it or not, the priest and the criminal, if the criminal were to confess his sins to the priest cannot relay that to the authorities unless the criminal agrees that it's okay to tell people. It's told in confidence. Or an attorney-client privilege. That's loyalty in action. You can't repeat what your client tells you even after the relationship ends. So loyalty, my friends, is a very deep responsibility. Exercise it wisely. I have a duty of disclosure. Now, what is it that I have to disclose? Well, that's a good question. Well, as a real estate salesperson or broker who doesn't work for a client, I can disclose anything I want about anything I know. Or I just keep my big mouth shut. Doesn't matter. So a client walks in the door, hey, I'm looking to buy a house. Great. Would you sign a buyer's agency agreement? No, I'm not signing any agency agreements. Okay, so you don't want me to work for you then, is that correct? Well, I want you to help me find a house. Okay. Well, let me ask you a question. If we do find a house, would you want me to work on the offer for you and negotiate for you? Yes. So at that point, you're going to have to hire me as a buyer's agent. Isn't that correct? Yeah. So that's we understand. So now when I look at properties, I have to disclose to the seller's agent or the seller, hi, I represent a buyer who has interest in your property. What can you tell me about your house? Seller says it's as is. Well, what else can you tell me about the house? There's no other disclosures. I find that hard to believe. Didn't the seller disclose to you about certain conditions or how the property is in good condition or not? Nope, don't know anything. Well, I find that very hard to believe. As a listing agent myself, I ask more questions than people are ready to answer. Believe it or not, when I was my own broker and I hired salespeople, I made up a list of 100 questions buyers agents should ask their clients. And for a seller, I made up a list of 100 questions that the seller's agent should ask the seller. And then I told each salesperson, come up with 50 more questions each. You can never ask too many questions to get information, guys. One of the questions I asked the seller is there anything about your house that a buyer must know regarding its condition, its safety, or habitability? Well, what do you mean? Is the structure in good condition? I don't know. Well, have you gotten any reports? Or has anybody told you about certain conditions that may exist that threaten the structural integrity of your home? I don't know. Well, then that's not a good enough answer. So by your evasiveness, I would have to assume maybe there was a report or something. Well, there was this one engineer who said that the east wall of the foundation is undermining and we're going to have to do a very big repair soon. And we don't want to do that. And we don't want you to tell buyers about that either. Well, the thing is, Mr. Seller, now that you told me, I'm required to disclose information I know that could affect the structural integrity of your building to any buyer that wants to know. But I don't want you to tell them that. But I have a fiduciary obligation to disclose information about properties. So how do we handle this? I'm going to disclose everything I can about everything I know about this property and what affects it. But that's not fair to me. I hired you to sell my house with best price, terms, and conditions. That is what I'm going to do. But the fact is, I have a duty to disclose at all times the truth of the matter. To hide information could result in lawsuits where material defects, known problems with the house, were not disclosed to the buyer, and the buyer would then sue for intentional misrepresentation, of which this could cost me my license and you a lot of money. So I don't wish to risk my license and I don't want you to risk any money. So let's just be truthful in our disclosures about the property. In fact, there's many instances where a seller may not want to disclose any information on a property. That's not a good excuse. I don't want to tell anybody. Mr. Seller, in order to sell your house for the best price, terms, conditions, you need to tell me everything about your house that I need to know. And if you don't tell me, then guess what? I have to look at other sources to find out information. So if you tell me everything's cool with your property, and I go down to the building department and pull up any permits that haven't been closed out, or structural issues that the building department has told you about, or habitability issues, guys, I'm going to have to tell you this. I have to tell buyers about this. So you need us to disclose everything about the property, everything you know. Be truthful and honest with me so I can relate truthfully and honestly that information to a buyer. If you were a buyer, wouldn't you want to know about the condition of the property you're buying? In fact, realtors have come up with it's like an 8-page, 122 question property disclosure form that we use. And it's not in this chapter. It's in another chapter. Or is it? Let me just do a quick scan. Yeah, it's in another chapter. Probably chapter 10. Let me just do a quick review. Oh, where's chapter 10? That's 12, 11. So 10. Let's see if it's in there. Yep. On page 154 in your 14th edition hard-covered textbook is the beginning of the seller's property condition disclosure statement. It's like 10 pages long, has 122 questions that we give the seller this form and say, please complete this form truthfully and honestly. Questions that are asking things like, do you know of any moisture problems in the house? Yes, no, unknown. In fact, you can say, I don't know. If you're truthful about it, no problem. But if you know about it, you have to disclose it. So that when a buyer comes along, I have a form that I can give to that buyer about what the seller knows about their property. The buyer feels much more confident when he reads that report because in it supposedly is the truth of the property. But it obviously pending a home inspection, If it would reveal more issues, then that's that issue. But the fact is, it just helps me sell the house quicker and with less hassle, Mr. Seller. So I'd ask you to fill out that seller's disclosure form. Some people will. It's not a requirement, but some people object to it. And if they do, then I have more questions. Why don't you want to fill out the form? Because I don't want to be held responsible for anything about this property that is related to buyers. Well, Mr. Seller, you're responsible anyway. Remember, it's your house. The condition of your house, every homeowner should know what the condition of their house is in. So if you're not being truthful or you don't want to fill out that form, one of the first things buyers assume, whether it's right or no wrong, is that because you didn't fill out the form and you're not disclosing, that seller's hiding something. And if they're hiding something, then the prices are probably worth it. So don't even bother looking at the house. Let's move on. I don't want to take the risk of getting into a deal that all of a sudden turns crazy because of undisclosed issues with the property. I don't want to deal with that. Let's move on. So we move on and buy another house. Mr. Seller, you could have sold your house if you had disclosed, truthfully. So understand, guys, these disclosure forms aren't just paperwork. They're ways to convince buyers of the true condition of the property if the seller discloses. As their agent, whether I work for the buyer or seller, let's say I work for the seller, I'm duty bound by my fiduciary duties to disclose to buyers the true condition of that property that I know. I must disclose all material defects or issues that affect the value and condition of that property. I must. Therefore, I have a duty not only to disclose, but to research. Now, I'm not saying you have to crawl around in cobwebs and, critter-infested crawl space and stuff, but you know what? I do. I always carry a set of overalls and a pair of work boots in my trunk, a couple towels and some wash soap, just in case I do have to crawl around to look for information to disclose the proper truth about an item. You don't have to do that. However, you do need to cull different resources to find information. I came across one woman in Mahwah, New Jersey, who said, I want to sell my house, and everything looked great about the house. I said, I got a question for you. They recently put sewers in the street. Did you hook up to the sewers? Yes. Great. Do you have your connection, the paperwork about the connection? No, I don't know where it is. Do you have the paperwork about properly abandoning the old septic system? No, I don't. So I said, so you don't have any proof of this? She goes, no. But my husband told me before he died it was all taken care of. Well, if she doesn't know, then I'm going to go down to the building department. Got a question about 172 Cherokee Run. I got a question on, is that house on sewers or is it still on septic? We have no record of any connection to the sewer line. Therefore, according to the town, it's still on septic. So I had to inform the woman that her house wasn't on sewer. It was, in fact, on septic, and that the buyer would probably have to pay for the connection if the seller doesn't. I also then asked her, was there any special assessments against the house? She said, no. I said, but what about the $10,000 hookup or the installation fee for the sewer in the street? Not the hookup, just the installation. She said, well, we're paying that installment. So I said, so I have to disclose to the buyer that they may be responsible for installment payments to pay off the special assessment on your property due to the sewer in the street. Don't tell them that. It'll lessen the value of my house, but I have to. I must disclose any and all material defects that are discoverable. And it doesn't mean you have to do a physical inspection. There's other resources, guys. Disclosure also infers that whenever meeting people, I must disclose who I am as a licensee. Hi, my name is Tim Jensen. I'm the broker associate with XYZ Real Estate. I represent the seller in this case. Thanks for coming to the open house. In other words, I told people who I am, who I work for, and what my relationship is. That way they have no question about who I represent, etc., etc. It's very plain and clear from my presentation. My name is Tim Jensen. I'm a broker associate working for XYZ Real Estate. I represent the seller. Thanks for coming to our open house. So if they're a buyer, they know I represent the seller. Disclosure also extends to the fact that if you're a licensee looking to buy or sell property for your own purpose, then you must disclose in every aspect that you're a licensee. I bought a house in Oakland, New Jersey 27 years ago. My wife and I still live in it. 25 years ago. My mistake. 26 years ago. Good Lord. In fact, next week's 26 years. Holy crap. Time flies. But anyway, I was buying it from a little old lady who was going belly up. The house was in rough condition. It was one of those, serious fixer-uppers. When discussing her home, I told her, ma'am, I am a licensed real estate broker. Do you have a realtor working for you? No. I said, then let me get an attorney to help represent your interest because I'm looking to buy your house. I'm interested in buying it. She goes, but the bank's going to claim it any day. I said, that doesn't bother me. I can still work the deal. So she hired the attorney, very good local attorney. I made the offer through the attorney, and on the list, on the offer, it said, purchaser is licensed real estate broker in New Jersey. I had to disclose, not just verbally, but I did it in paperwork as well, so no one had any question about who I was and what I knew about real estate. Because you can just see it now. If I didn't disclose and someone found out about it, they'd say something like, real estate, unethical real estate broker takes advantage of little old lady. Don't want that. So I disclose my licensing status and my relationship to buyers and sellers at all times. If you're selling your house for mom, you must put in the listing, seller is related to the agent or seller's agent. If you're representing a buyer who's a relative, buyer's agent is related to the buyer in the contract offer. So there's no question any time if there's a relationship and who you're working for. Disclosure has many different levels. So here's the question everybody wants to answer. Do I disclose if there are murders, suicides, or death in a home? What's your say on this? Am I required to disclose murders, deaths, and suicides? No, yes, yes, I think we should. No, it's not physical. No, 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 yes, if they ask. No, not required. Yes, yes, no, no, yes, only if asked. Yes, yeah, yes, only if buyer asks. Buyer must ask. No, I'm not obligated. No, 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 not unless they ask. Okay, good. Thank you. I appreciate it. So we're pretty much split on this. I want to know. Or yes, ethics. So let's consider this. Someone dies in a house, whether it's murder, death, or suicide. Who cares? Somebody died. Am I required to disclose that to buyers? And the answer to that question is no, I am not. What? You don't have to disclose murder, death, suicide? No. Why not? Because it probably doesn't affect the material value of the house. It could be a perceived issue with a buyer, but it's not real. What do you mean? Just as many people buy houses when people die in them as people don't buy houses when people die in them. Believe it or not, folks, up until the 1950s, children were born in houses in a matter of regular occurrence, and people died in houses as a matter of occurrence. That's the way it used to be. Now people are shuffled off into hospice and they die in a hospital care facility or something like that. But the fact is, for as long as man had a home, people were born and died in homes. So if you're so worried about the spiritual energy in a house or something, guys, guess what? If the house is older than, let's say, 20 or 30 years, chances are there's someone who was either born or died in that house. Now, don't worry. Here's the simple rule. Is it a material value issue? If not, then you're not required to disclose. There's a famous, well, then I'm going to also extend this question to this way. If you don't have to disclose murders, deaths, and suicides, then what about a ghost? Do I have to disclose there's a ghost in the house? Anybody? Yes, no, maybe so. I don't know. What? No, I don't want to know. No, 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 no. Yes, only one, two yeses. Wow, if they ask. I don't know. Thanks for being honest. Someone said, I don't know. That's the best answer I saw so far. It happens to me. Ah. Was there a case about stalking, sending letters? We'll talk about that in a minute, Jennifer. Give them some sage. Yeah, let them cleanse the house. Okay. Thanks for the responses, guys. Always look forward to some of these comments. Really good. Give them some sage with the sale. All right. So, yes, there is a case that realtors now use as a benchmark. It's called the Ghostbusters case. Yes, in Nyack, New York. There was a situation where a woman was selling her home for sale by owner. And a gentleman looked at the home and decided he wanted to buy it and contracted with the seller and gave her a deposit to hold the property for him until the closing. She agreed. Within days, however, that buyer was told by one of his friends, why are you buying a haunted house? What are you talking about? She never said anything about ghosts. Oh, yeah, she wrote an article. It's in the newspaper from a year ago. In fact, you can go to the library and look it up. So he did, looked it up. Sure, it was this woman describing how she was communing with the spirit in the attic for years. The buyer said, I don't want to buy a house with ghosts in it. So he approached the woman and said, I want out of the contract. She says, too late. Your money's already in my bank. He goes, I don't care. I'm canceling the contract and I want my money back. She said, no, I'm keeping your money. They went to court. In New York State, the New York judicial system came up with this decision. The judge said, seller, you have to give half of your deposit back to the buyer, but you can keep half. The buyer's like, what the hell's going on here? The judge said this, under New York law, sellers, by extension realtors, are not required to disclose issues with the property that are not material in nature. He says, Your Honor, there's a ghost. He goes, can you give me scientific evidence of the ghost's presence? Obviously not. So there's no proof of this ghost in the house. Therefore, my decision is this. The woman had every right not to disclose. It is not a required disclosure. However, I'm going to grant you half of your security deposit back because she should have told you. Here comes the law and ethics butting heads. You're not required, so therefore you don't disclose. However, ethics say it's the right thing to do. You should disclose. Who's right? There is no right or wrong here, guys. So under current law, there is no defining law that says we must disclose certain issues, murders, deaths, suicides, ghosts in a property. But think about it. Working for a buyer, don't you think they would want to know that information? So my suggestion is, and this is my personal creed, you can do whatever you think is right. Disclose, disclose, disclose. But when in doubt, disclose. Who are you going to hurt by telling the truth? The buyer can easily say, you know what? I dig ghosts. Let's go look at the house. I might want to be buying that. Or could never live in a house with ghosts. Let's look at other properties. By not telling them, I've taken the decision capability from them and made a decision for them. That's not right. Ethics are doing the right thing. Let the consumer be the judge about what they want to buy or not by furnishing them all the information you know is relevant about the property. Let the consumer decide that. Do not take it upon yourself to be judge and jury here by saying, oh, I'm not going to tell them about the death in the house. That's not right. And yes, there is a very famous New Jersey case that courts never resolved. It was called the Watcher House. Ooh, the Watcher House. It was a case in Westfield, New Jersey about 15, 20 years ago. Couple bought a house for $1.3 million, but it's about 12, 15 years ago, my mistake. And when they moved in, they started getting anonymous letters signed The Watcher, like, I saw you and the little girls both in their print dresses in the kitchen making cookies. Mom practically freaked out when she got that letter. Didn't know who it was from, except it was signed The Watcher. They continued to get these very personal and almost invasive letters from this guy, The Watcher, about what they do in their own house. They couldn't figure out who this guy was or gal. Who is it? And how did they know what we're doing in our house? They couldn't find that out either. They were very upset and worried. They tried to sell their house. They couldn't because everybody in the neighborhood knew about it. So they sued the realtor and the seller for non-disclosure material defect. The courts determined that the seller did not have to disclose The Watcher, and the realtor was under no obligation to disclose it as well. Should they have is the other question. In fact, The Watcher house was made into a Netflix movie. I don't know if you ever saw it. I don't know what it's called, but it's about this house in Westfield, New Jersey. Now, recently, last year, the sellers finally sold that house and got out of it, but they suffered a $400,000 loss on the resale. There's speculation they're going to try to sue the seller again for the same thing. I don't know if that involves double jeopardy or if there's actual material loss now they can apply as a proof of loss. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know these things. But if you're interested, you can go to Netflix and probably look this up and watch the movie. Interesting stuff. So here's the thing about ghosts, murders, and deaths and suicide. There's no law that says you must disclose. However, what about your client's thoughts? Shouldn't you at least let them have the benefit of deciding for themselves whether they want to pursue the property or not by disclosing? And again, as my personal policy is disclose, 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 and when in doubt, disclose. Questions, thoughts, concerns, anybody? And no, I don't know of any ghost houses around right now. How is it not ethical to disclose a ghost, but you don't have to disclose it? Again, it applies to both. You don't have to disclose about ghosts or murders, deaths, or suicides. I can't imagine that the majority of sellers will voluntarily give up information about the flaws, problems about their property that they are trying to sell. Sellers can be very sensitive to criticism in their beloved house. Of course, that's correct, Kira. But when dealing with sellers, again, your broker has to train you on the wording and technique here, is you try to make it known that it's in their best interest to disclose. Because then they'll have less hassles later when the home inspection reveals these things that they're trying to hide. The Watcher, there you go. Anybody else with a question or concern? When in doubt, disclosure, it will come back and bite you. Ooh, I hope it doesn't, but my personal opinion is disclose. How do you prove if a house is haunted? I don't want to go there. All I know is my wife says she watches these ghost TV shows. I guess when an EMF detector goes off, it means ghosts are present. That's all. I don't know. That's what she tells me. If you don't have to disclose the information and the buyer asks were there any deaths, is the seller obligated to answer honestly? The courts have not decided. The courts say you don't have to disclose, but you should. So as a legal entity, any attorneys out there, what does that mean? It sounds like a very evasive decision, to my opinion. But I'm not an attorney. I don't know these things. Is more about the ethics of the salesperson and the broker to discuss any deaths or suicide? More likely, Bolivar, yes, that's correct. What are your ethics? What do you think the right thing to do would be? Disclose it, cause it can haunt you like a guy. Yeah, I guess it could. They never told me the house was haunted. They did not tell us. Guys, it is what it is. I want to buy that house now. Cool. All right. Thanks for the comments and questions, guys. Real good insights. But again, you can see where now as a realtor, what do I do? The courts don't offer guidance. All they say is, you don't have to disclose that. but you should. So legally, I'm in a catch-22 or a twilight zone. What do I tell them? I don't know. Oh my God. Be honest, guys. What is your client looking to do? Buy a house? Don't you think they deserve to know everything about the house that you can give them? In my opinion, and again, just my opinion, they do. But that's my opinion. So please don't write that down as fact. All right, now, I also have a duty of what's called fair dealing to everyone. General duty of fair dealing. Whether you're a client, whether I represent you or someone else, whether you have a relationship with me or not, whether you're a customer or a client, doesn't matter. I must be fair and honest in my dealings with all realtors, all salespeople and brokers, all clients and customers, as well as the general public. I must be honest and fair and truthful in my dealings with them all. I should never try to intentionally mislead anyone about information. Therefore, my general duty of fair dealing requires that I do what's right for everyone at every opportunity. Buyer comes in the office. Hey, what can you tell me about this listing you have? What would you like to know? How many bedrooms? 4 bedrooms, et cetera, et cetera. Why are they selling? You know what? Don't know right now. Besides, I don't represent you, Mr. Buyer. I'm not going to say this. I don't represent that buyer. They're just a customer walking and looking for information. Maybe I represent the seller. And in this case, I would say to them, by the way, I'm the listing agent on this house. I can give you as much information as the seller allows me to. But if you're interested, remember, I represent the seller. So maybe you should get an attorney to represent your interest if you're interested in pursuing this property. Disclose, disclose, disclose. Deal fairly with everyone. Other realtors as well. Be especially aware of this, guys. There are realtors out there that think you are dirt. They think they are everything, and they don't want to even deal with you. The fact is, we are duty bound to deal with everyone equally and fairly. And if a realtor's not doing that, they should be addressed. And if not personally, certainly professionally, through local board offices by making a complaint or the real estate commission. And I'm not being silly here. We're required to police our own in the real estate industry. If customers won't or clients won't, then we're required to, but nobody does. Nobody likes to be the person. They don't want to have to take time off to fill out forms and be responsible for reporting the poor activities of another person. Well, without doing that, then you condone that behavior and then it's okay. Everybody else can do it. I personally don't agree with that philosophy. I think if you're doing something wrong, I have a duty to correct you. And if you're not going to correct, then I'm going to have to report you to an authority that will correct you. Because your bad behavior reflects on my ability to do business. All you realtors, you're all alike. You're all a bunch of crooks. You're all like used car salesmen. You're going to soak me for everything I got. Guys, that's what people think because we don't police our own. Sad state of affairs. If you dwell in a business and it's corrupt and you don't do anything about it. I'm not asking you to be the knight in shining armor on this white steed, vanquishing the demons and dragons. I'm not asking you to do that either. I'm asking to say, if you see something that's a problem, then address that person. Hey, do you know what this means when you act this way? Do you understand how that could infer something that maybe isn't true about you? Just saying, maybe if we did something a little differently, we can improve our ability to service our clients and interact with people. I have a general duty of fair dealing. That means we have to treat everyone equally and fairly. Don't diss them because they're a competitor of yours. You may need them at a negotiating table at some point. So we have an obligation and a duty to treat everyone fairly, equally, and truthfully. Was there any follow-up questions to these fiduciary responsibilities I have as an agent? And I'm not seeing any questions, so I'm going to moderate the conversation and move on. Remember, we're not taking a break at 10:30. We're working straight through to 11:30 when Chris shows up. Chris Stern shows up from Edward Jones, and he'll present his information to you at that time. I'm sorry, was there a question? Let me open it up. Go ahead. Sean, you had a question. I want to buy that. Oh, no, no question? Okay, so let's move on. Now, you're going to get hired as a salesperson working for a broker. That means in order to do your job, you must have a signed independent contractor agreement with your broker. There's very few positions in real estate that are salaried as employees. Most positions in real estate sales and rentals are independent contractor positions. So chances are you're going to be hired as an independent contractor. Now that's completely different than an employee. Let's think about it for a minute. An employee. Employee is required to show up at a certain date or time to do a certain thing in a certain way and have a supervisor approve that work or correct that work. And if you do it in the time frame allowed and under the rules and regulations of the company, then every week or so you can collect a paycheck for what you do. And then when you get paid, they take all your taxes out of your paycheck, FICA, unemployment insurance, Social Security. Maybe they have pensions or savings accounts, IRAs, 401ks. Maybe they're participating, paying some of your health insurance premiums and all that stuff. And then whatever's left is what you get as your net paycheck. I can still see the face on my son when he went to work at his first real job. He got his paycheck. I said, so tell me, what's the damage? He looks and goes, this is unfair. I said, what? They're robbing me. I said, who's robbing you? The government. I said, well, welcome to the real world, son. Because they're taking almost how much of this paycheck can they take at once? I said, they do that every week when you get a paycheck. That's crazy. Where's all my money going? The pending question that everybody's still asking after what? A couple hundred years of doing business as this country? These taxes are just soaking my paycheck away from me. But the fact is, that's the way it works as an employee. And every time you show up to work and do what's required of you, you get paid. But you must show up and you must do certain work in a certain way, in a certain time frame, at a certain location, or you won't get paid. An independent contract, completely different. Think about what an independent contractor is responsible to. Themselves only. So as an independent contractor, you're not required to show up at a certain place at a certain time, to do a certain thing in a certain way, to have a supervisor approve it or correct it, to get a paycheck. In fact, there's no requirement for you to do anything whatsoever if you feel you don't want to. But I will say this, and I warn people all the time, if you're not producing, you're not getting a paycheck. In real estate, guys, we get paid for our ability to produce income for the broker, whether that's through sales, whether that's through listings, whether that's through rentals, property management, whatever sort of business you're in. My job as a worker for the broker is to produce income for that broker. That's my job. As a salesperson, when you get hired, your job is to create money for that broker by getting sales, by getting listings, by doing rentals, et cetera, et cetera. And then when you do your job, you get paid for it, but you don't get paid like today. So you go out and you sell a house today. It may be 3 to 6 months before you get a paycheck for that. I'm being very serious here. On average, it takes a good 90 days on average to close a real estate transaction, about 3 months. So if you're wildly successful and you get your license and it's before the end of February and you sell a house, it may be May before you get a paycheck, or later for the production you did in February. So number one, you're not getting a paycheck based on you're doing whatever the broker requires you to do. You're doing something because you did something. You produced dollars for the broker. And then when the broker gets paid, you get paid your share of the split that you agreed to. And when you do get paid, there's no taxes, there's no FICA, Social Security, unemployment insurance. There's no payroll savings, IRAs, or 401ks deducted from your income. There's no insurance payments because you pay your own insurance, guys. In fact, the only thing the broker takes out of your agreement is whatever's specified in your independent contractor agreement. That could be a franchise fee, advertising fees, marketing fees, whatever you and the broker decide to, and there is no standard. Every broker's different. So when you get paid, you get a very big check, which means you then have to be accountable for things like living expenses, budgeting your money, putting some money away in case there's a rainy day fund, putting money away to pay taxes. Whoa, wait a minute, what? Excuse me. I had to hire years ago a new agent. Today, this agent is one of my best friends in the business. I'll just say his name is John. I'll leave it at that. As a new agent, this guy was full of juice. I mean, he was full of piss and vinegar. He came out of the barn roaring, ready to do business. And in his first week, he got 2 listings. Wow, nice production. In his second week, he put a house under contract, not his listings. And in the third week, he got one of his listings under contract. I mean, this guy was on fire. He was going to make good coin. As his first closing occurred, I invited him into my office. I said, John, I just want to let you know I got paid on your job. And man, we made some good coin on your job. Thank you very much. Good job. Thanks. When I got my paycheck, boss, I'm cutting it right now. Your check is going to be for $11,000. He's like, yeah, baby. And I said, what are you going to do with it? He goes, well, I'm going to have some fun. I said, you deserve it. You've worked hard. Now go play hard and have a good time. I said, however, I don't want to be your father or your big brother, but if you would, let me give you some words of counsel. Number one, take about a third of your paycheck and sock it away into a savings account. Don't touch it. Why? Because you have to pay taxes at the end of the year. If you're in a category of 30 or 40% income, especially if I see you producing, you're going to be in a 30% tax bracket. That means if you make $100,000, you better have $30,000 on hand to pay taxes with it anytime when the taxes are due. Oh, I see what you mean. I said, however, there's ways to minimize that, but you got to put enough money away to pay your taxes. Okay, understood. I said, also do yourself another favor. What's that? Take another third of your paycheck and sock it away into another savings account. Don't touch it. Why not? What? Well, you're limiting me to my enjoyability factor. I said, well, what happens if in 2 months from now you don't have a closing and you have bills to pay? What are you going to do? Never thought of that. So not every month is an income producing month for you guys. In fact, your income could go up and down for quite a while until you learn how to income stabilize by doing certain different things. And your brokers will train you how to do that. So you may do production and all of a sudden not get paid for 2 or 3 months. You better have some money socked away somewhere to take care of bills and stuff to pay. And I said, for the remaining third that you get, it's going to be about $3,500, right? He goes, yeah. I said, is there enough money to pay your bills? Yes. And some fun money too, right? Yep. I said, good, then go have a great time. Gave him his check and off he goes Friday afternoon. I didn't see him Saturday or Sunday. And Monday he came in. He was like, I said, what's up, John? He goes, not much. Are you down? Are you like, what's the matter? You're depressed? What's going on? I lost some money this weekend. You must have played hard. Oh, yeah, we did. This is what happened. We went to Atlantic City. How much they get you for? Everything. So what? Everything. What, $3,500? He goes, no, The entire 11 grand. What? How are you going to pay your bills, John? I don't know. How are you going to pay your taxes? I don't know. What's your girlfriend think? As soon as I lost the last $5, she split, never saw her again. Girlfriends like that you don't need. I said, but you have no money now, right? No, nothing. I said, it's a good thing you got some closings coming up. Yeah, but I got bills now, boss. I don't know how I'm going to pay him. I knew he was going to make the money, and I knew he was going to be a good producer. So I said, tell you what, I'm going to advance you half of your next paycheck, well ahead of your deserved time. But I understand the situation you're in. I said, but do me a favor. In the future, when you get paid, put money away for these items. And he did. John's a very successful real estate broker today. He does very good business. It's not because of me. It's because he had it within himself to produce and get up and self-motivate and do stuff. But I do think it's important to understand, guys, as independent contractors, you are responsible for your own time and your own money. No one else is responsible. If you choose not to work today, that's fine. That's your prerogative. If you choose not to work tomorrow, that's fine. That's your prerogative. So when a salesperson isn't working, I must ask them, how are you making money if you're not working? What do you mean? Well, if you're not producing income for me, how are you able to pay your bills? Or are you in a bad way? Most likely they're in a bad way. So remember, and first of all, understand, independent contractor status is a level of freedom you may have never experienced. I've been an independent contractor for the past 30 years in my life. There's nothing else I'd rather do. Yes, you can get a job with a salary or paycheck every week, but you're limited to the income that that paycheck gives you. With a salary, that means you get a guaranteed paycheck every week as long as you do your job in the same location at the same time, the same way, with the same supervisor approving or disapproving, et cetera, et cetera. That's fine. And people sometimes do better as an employee in a job. You do know what job stands for, right? Just over broke. I'd rather have a career as a real estate professional where the sky is the limit on my earnings. But anyway, independent contractors, if you're not working, then you're not producing income. I will say this, and I told you this yesterday. For a period of about 3 years, I worked my keister off. I used to be a lot svelter back in the day, not much anymore, but I was working 16 to 18-hour days, 7 days a week, 365 for 3 years straight, and I made a lot of money. And I'm not even going to be bashful about it. I made a lot of money. Felt very good. But it was a point where my wife said to me, did you forget about me and the kids? What a sobering thought. My marriage was now at stake. See, do I still make all kinds of money, or do I cut back and enjoy my life a little better? Guys, that comes to a point in your own life where you have to make that decision. At what cost do I press on so hard for? Is it because of your wife and kids? If so, they're more important than the income you make. And this is just an aside from me, guys. This is not book learning stuff. Your happiness and your family's happiness is more important than the size of your paycheck, believe it or not. And by the way, if you have no responsibilities, you're not married, no kids or something, or you are married, no kids, then you can bust your hump as much as you want until your spouse complains. And you can make a ton of bucks in this business right now. There's opportunity in every market. An independent contractor knows that and sniffs out those opportunities and capitalizes on them. An employee doesn't have that kind of attitude. All they know is, all I do is show up, work a few hours, do what they tell me to do, and I got a paycheck, and this is how much I make. They're stuck in a lifestyle. They're never going to make more than a few bucks an hour or whatever. As a realtor, sky's the limit. I can go out and make $1 bajillion, and I'd be happy, or not, depending on your perspective. But independent contractors, much different than employees. So if you've never been an independent contractor before, Think about when you start making money, how are you going to account for that money? Do you need to put money away for taxes, for rainy days? And the answer to that is, in my opinion, it would be a responsible thing to do. But that, again, is my opinion. Do what you think is right at all times. As an independent contractor, you have that right. You can leave an employer at any time you desire as an independent contractor and go to work for any other broker you want to at any time because you're an independent contractor. You don't want to work today? You don't have to because you're an independent contractor. You want to go fishing. You want to go skiing. You want to do this or that. Go to the beach. Down the shore. I shouldn't say go to the beach. Down the shore. It's a Jersey thing. And if so, then you don't have to work and you enjoy yourself. But there still comes those bills at the end of the month. Therefore, you're going to have to work to produce so you can get a paycheck. Was there any questions about the difference between employee and independent contractor? And if you have questions, guys, now's the time to ask. When Chris Stern comes in 1 hour, he's going to be addressing this very issue to you as an independent contractor. How do you account for unexpected issues? What kind of savings should I create? Can I do my own investments? All kinds of things. You're gonna need to know that information to be successful in this business. Without that counseling, you can fall flat in your face and be very, very broke very fast. Was there any questions? Let's see. Aren't there more tax benefits for independent contractors? Of course, yes. And that's why I say before you need to talk to an accountant to find out how they benefit you. Thank you for personal touch. Yeah, well, it's my job, guys, to give you information. Real estate, 1099s, 1099 income statements. So an employee is one who clocks in, and an independent contractor is self-employed and works for themselves. Yes. All right, good questions, good statements. So let's moderate and, oh, sorry, there was another question. Christian, go ahead. What was the meaning of job again? That was my take on it. Just over broke. All right, let's move on. Now, the broker's compensation. We told you, or actually I told you yesterday, it is the broker who gets paid for doing the job, not the salesperson. The salesperson does not get paid except from their employing broker only. Remember, that's one of the cardinal sins we talked about. You cannot accept any form of compensation except from your supervising broker. So you're going to get paid a commission split for your job of selling property or renting property or whatever. So it can either be a percentage fee, a flat fee. There's companies out there with menus of service fees and things like that. What do I mean? You want the, you want the basic package. Well, that's 2% listing fee. You want the, bronze package. That could be a 3% fee. You want the silver package. That's a 4% fee. You want the gold package, well, that's a 5% fee. But if you want the titanium plan, ooh, that's 6% listing fee. Brokers have menus of service for different levels of responsibility and advice and things like that. You can have a flat fee. $5,000 sells any house. All you got to pay you is $5,000. You'll sell my house. If so, then I can establish a flat fee and collect that fee at the closing. Imagine if realtors charge by the hour. OMG, there's not enough money in the world to pay me. Believe it or not. You're going to work a lot of hours, guys, and you're going to earn good income if you do. But understand that you have to represent clients, that you have to get dirty in the business. You have to introduce properties. You have to discuss, negotiate, objection handle. You have to present. You have to have process, technique, and dialogue. And the only person that's going to train you to do that is your broker, not me, your broker. So when a broker gets paid a fee, that means they were successful in completing the task they were hired to do. Sell someone's house, or help someone buy a house, or help someone rent an apartment, whatever the case is. So the terms ready, willing, and able buyer, as well as the terms ready, willing, and able seller, have to be thought about. We need to understand and have questions for buyers and sellers of what is your motivation? What's your time frame? When do you want to do something? What's the urgency? What do you want? What do you dream of? What's your interest? What's your wants? What's your desires? So that when I can have the opportunity of working for you, I can work to achieve those desires and objectives. But I need to know, are you a ready, willing, and able buyer or seller, ready to make a deal today? And if so, then I want to represent you to help you achieve that goal. So if I represent the seller and they are a ready, willing, and able seller, and if I can have a buyer come to us who's a ready, willing, and able buyer, I could probably put a deal together in some manner by negotiating between both. Once the broker has achieved what is known as an offer and acceptance, a buyer makes an offer and the seller accepts that and signs a contract. That's called an offer and acceptance. At that moment, it's also known as a meeting of the minds, where buyer and seller, both ready, willing, and able, without duress or undue pressure, agreed to price, terms, conditions, and signed a contract stating so. At that moment, offer acceptance, also known as a meeting of the minds, is when a broker is said to have earned their commission. It doesn't say you get paid your commission at this moment. It says that's the point where a broker has earned the commission by producing an offer acceptance, a meeting of the minds. And the signed contract is evidence of that. Now, does the deal actually go through is the second question. Well, 75 to 80% of all signed real estate deals do go through. That means there's a 20 to 25% that they don't. So even when you sign contracts, you've earned your commission, a deal could fall apart in attorney review at some other point. And if so, you're not getting paid anything. That's the unfortunate part about real estate. You work real hard sometimes and things fall apart outside of your control. There's nothing you can do except next. So develop that mindset. Next. This one failed. I'm not going to cry and dwell on it and commit harry-carry because it fell apart. No. Next. Move on. Yesterday's loss is yesterday's loss. Today, let's make a new prospective and go for it. So, procuring cause. What's that? Okay, I'll talk about that in a second. But the third bullet point on this PowerPoint says brokers may be entitled to a commission even if transaction is not consummated. What does that mean? Let's take a scenario where I represent the seller. And during the course of my business, we take in a buyer from another company that buys the property. They agree to contract, ready, willing, and able buyer, ready, willing, seller. They have a meeting of the minds, sign a contract, and an offer acceptance has been achieved. We have earned our commission, but we're not getting paid yet. And then 3 weeks before the closing, without notice to anybody, the seller says, hey, Tim, just so you know, I'm going to cancel the deal and get out of the deal because I can't find another house I'd rather move into, and I love my house. I'm not going to move. But Mr. Seller, the buyer has an issue because they're expecting to move into your house in just a few days. Well, you tell them that the deal's off. We're going to have your attorney write a letter disapproving of the contract and then see what's going to happen because that buyer now has rights. Remember, if you fulfilled your obligation and so does the buyer, then the only thing left to do is close the deal, and now you don't want to close. If you're able to get rid of the buyer through some sort of settlement, then Mr. Seller, I got a question. I'm your listing broker. What about me? I did my job just as you required me to do. And now you're canceling the deal and we can't relist your house to sell it again? I did everything you requested, produced that buyer, agreed to contract terms and acceptance, and now you're canceling out on me. It doesn't seem fair to me in any way whatsoever. In fact, Mr. Seller, if I wanted to, I could sell you for the entire amount of my fee, and the court would probably approve it. I don't want to do that. So will you be willing to settle up with me for minimally my time and expense for putting into the job? The broker may still be entitled to a commission, but in this case, my client, the seller, backed out and he's paying a commission. In that case, I need to negotiate with him to say, what can you give me because I did what you told me to do? I may still be entitled to that commission, but I'd settle for time and expense. And if so, at least I cover my losses and maybe make a few dollars because of it. Now, procuring cause. This is an interesting topic, but I will introduce procuring cause with the words, procuring cause is often very hard to determine. Well, what's procuring cause? The reason why a property sold, or the process, or the thing that started a chain of events that led to the sale of a property. What's the procuring cause? It could be the actions of a salesperson, introducing a buyer to property, showing them the property, negotiating, so that when they get the property, it's the salesperson's efforts that were the procuring cause as to why that house sold. But as I said, procuring cause is sometimes very hard to determine. I was called as a judge in a tribunal hearing of two real estate brokers arguing over commission money. Now, when you join a local board of realtors, which you all will do, you agree to binding arbitration at the board levels when disputes arise for commissions between brokers. So as a neutral broker, unrelated to the two agents, brokerage firms, I and two other brokers formed a tribunal and we heard the case. The first realtor came in with evidence that, gentlemen, this is the following scenario. I met with these named buyers on a certain date as evidenced by the signed CIS, Consumer Information Statement. We're going to go into that a little later. And it shows the date that we originally met. So I fulfilled the requirement of the CIS form. Then it shows in my timeline is when I introduced them to the mortgage representative and the fact that that mortgage representative got them approved for a mortgage because of my efforts of getting them to there. And here are the lockbox readouts from the houses I showed the buyers. And it shows the subject property, which they eventually bought. I showed them on a certain day and time. And you can ask them and it will be truthful. Therefore, through my actions and my time frame, it proves that I'm the procuring cause of the sale and deserve the commission. How this other agent got them to buy the house, I'll have no idea, but all I know is that at one day after showing the house that they eventually bought, they disappeared and wouldn't return my phone calls. So I'm charging the other brokerage with stealing my client without permission and violating the attorney-client privilege. Excuse me, the realtor-client relationship, and demand that you pay me the full commission in question. Okay, thank you for your presentation. Second agent, what happened? Unbeknownst to me, and unexpectedly, these people just showed up at my office, asked for me personally. And they said they had seen a house they wanted to put an offer in and buy. So I wrote up the offer. I negotiated on their behalf. I did everything for my client, got them the deal, worked through the inspection phase and everything else, and sold the house. Therefore, by law, I'm the guy who introduced the contract, negotiated. I'm due the commission, no question about it. So obviously we have two brokers with two different stories about one thing. And as you know, if you ever had children, there's always the third explanation or the truth. So we asked the first agent, do you mind if we call the client and ask him? No, please go right ahead. And we asked the second agent, do you mind if we call the client? She goes, do not disturb them. They are not to be disturbed. I want to honor their personal space. Getting the information from the first one, we called that client. We told them who we were and what we were doing. And we only had a couple questions, and that first one was, is it true that the first agent did all these things? Yes, to a T, they did everything that way. And for the second agent, she told us this was happened. Is that correct? Yes, exactly what happened. Our question to you is this, Mr. Client. How did you magically show up on her doorstep to buy a house? And why did you abandon the first agent? Did they do something contrary to their agency relationship with you? And the answer was the first agent did nothing wrong, except we had just heard that this gal, the agent that we bought the house from, just got her real estate license. In fact, we're very close friends with her mom. So we decided to give her the first deal. So we went to her office, told her about the house. She wrote up the offer, negotiated, and we got the house. Thank you very much. Our decision was the first agent got 80% of the commission. The second broker got 20%. The second broker, first of all, you agree to binding arbitration at these levels. The second broker got the 20%, started to give us a stink about it. How dare you? I did this work, I did that. So we had to say this, listen, you agree to binding arbitration, this is our final decision, here's why. Number one, you never asked the buyers if they were working with any other agents, did you? No. Did you ever ask for an agency disclosure? No. Did you give them a consumer information statement? No. Did you have a buyer's agency agreement signed with them? No. When did you show the house to the buyers? I didn't have to. Okay, so there you go. That's why you're getting 20%. What? You failed to ask about an agency relationship which they had already established with the other broker. Therefore, you violated one ethical law, that is to make sure that you're not infringing on another broker's agency relationship with a client. Number two, you never gave the CIS form, but the first agent did that. But so are you required to as a new agent to them. You failed to do that. Number three, you never showed the house to the buyer. So it is commonly accepted that agents must physically show the property and must step on or in the property as evidence of showing the property. And if you didn't do that, then you're not the procuring cause of the sale. That you negotiated and won the contract, we'll give you credit for. That's why you're getting 20% of the deal. But the first agent did all the work that you were supposed to do, and you dished it off as, well, it's already done, I don't have to do it. So understand, guys, procuring cause is sometimes very hard to determine. It's not self-evident just by looking at the surface of what's going on. You have to dig deeper sometimes. So in this case, because it was so well documented by the first agent and so poorly conducted by the second agent, our decision was relatively easy. But the fact remains, procuring cause is the reason why people buy. What was the event? And what was the chain of events that followed that led to the sale of the property? That in total is the procuring cause. The first agent had 80% of that done. The second agent picked up the ball and got 20% of it done. And that's why we decided to give an 80-20 split. Now, before I go any further, did anybody have any questions about what procuring cause is or how I explained it? Good. I find that relaying stories about my experiences in these matters helps people understand these concepts much better. So, was there any questions? Kira, you had a question? Gary? Must step in the property or on the property as evidence. In other words, if the second agent had gone to the property with the client and accessed the key box by recording her presence, that would have been proof that she introduced them to the property as well, but she didn't. All right, you're okay. Thank you. I think stories help us remember things much easier. Procuring cause is actions and proof of work. It is the thing and the trail of events that occurred. So yes, it's all of that, Amelia. It's Dennis, it's all your actions and your evidence of that that'll help establish procuring cause. So my recommendation is this, guys. Keep very good detailed notes about everything you do with your clients to show that if there's ever a case of questionable commission, you can prove through documents and a timeline exactly what happens. That could win you the commission, by the way. Was an agreement between the first agent and client signed saying client would only be working with them? Not that we're aware of. However, that first agent introduced them to the property, got them financially qualified, had a consumer information statement signed, did everything right, didn't have a buyer's agency agreement. But if allowed to, presenting an offer, she would have had a statement signed by that buyer saying this agent works for me to negotiate on my behalf. So that opportunity was taken from the first agent, and they literally just went to this gal who just got her license because they're friends with her mother. How do you document? Pen and paper? Best way to do it, I found. What I do is I take the manila envelope that a job is, the listing paperwork's all in, and I write notes all throughout the inside of the first flap, then inside the back flap, and if I have to, outside the back jacket of the envelope, and even on the first page, the cover of it, just so I have those evidences of what happened during that deal. You can document any way you want, guys and gals, but I got to tell you, the written word is much better than, let me see if I can recall it. Oh, it's not on my, I don't know where to get that document. I think I may have lost it. Written word is always available because it's on the job ticket. All that without a signature. Sure, that's very no. Gary, just so you know, personally, I've never had a buyer's agency agreement signed with a buyer, ever. It's a matter of building trust with your clients, guys. So you need it to know how to establish rapport. Another technique your brokers will teach you about, how to establish rapport with people. So any other questions before we move on? A half hour before Chris comes. So what is process? Every broker has their own process, Gary. So whoever hires you will teach you the process that they want you to follow to make sure you cover all the bases. Anybody else with a question? And please, I'm going to make this announcement right now. I don't do mentoring. I don't do sales coaching. I've done that for years, guys. I don't do that anymore. I'm just teaching real estate classes. Your broker is the one who's going to train you. That's why it's so important for you to get out and interview these brokers to find out which one's right for you. And they're all different. The rules about COVID have really interrupted this physical showing a property issue, and has become a problem. And the fact that the other thing is the market is supply and demand market. When a house comes on the market within hours, there's maybe a half a dozen offers in writing with no contingencies by people who have never seen the property. What? They only saw pictures on the internet. Yeah. So then when they get a winning bid, they'll schedule a showing where the sellers have to move out of the house for the day or whatever. Then they have to wear masks, go in and look at the house, and then make a decision, is this the house we're actually going to buy or not? So there's Christopher. He's just made his introduction. Chris, I was told you're coming at 11:30. Just want to confirm? Or you're starting now at 11? And if so, then I have to do a real quick 1 or 2 dance step here before I let you take over. Oh, I heard 11. Okay, so let's do it 11, guys. So Christopher Stern is here. No, don't come back. Do it now. I'll relinquish control. You don't control TV or vertical or horizontal. So there's Chris Stern. I'm going to leave my screen up, right, Chris? So you have a better communication link with these guys. So for the next 45 minutes or so, guys, Chris Stern from Edward Jones is going to talk to you about independent contractor and how you can prepare for a life in the business and what to do to save money. So, folks, Chris Stern, it's all yours, Chris. Good luck.
Thanks, Tim. Good to see you.
You too.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Just pulling up my slides. Please give me 1 second. Sorry if I interrupted. Lauren did tell me 11. She even called at 10:45 to let me know to come in. So we'll get to it. I appreciate being here. I'm just trying to open up everything as I multitask. All right. Perfect. Let me start this over. Good morning, everyone. Happy New Year. I hope everyone had a nice, safe, happy holiday. I do realize it's January 19th, but this is the first time this year in 2021 that I'm back presenting to this class. So I've been away for about 4 or 5 weeks due to scheduling restrictions, but I'm very, very happy to have the opportunity to be back and speak to all of you and to have this audience. So thank you for allowing me to be here. Again, my name's Christopher Stern. I'm a financial advisor with Edward Jones here in the Maywood branch, a couple minutes from Hackensack if you're from the area. And basically what I help to do is I educate people to help them organize their wealth, grow their wealth, protect their wealth, and then eventually transfer their wealth. I love what I do. I believe very strongly in the education aspect of my work, which is why I'm here in front of all of you today. I really, really get excited. I've been, teaching this class or presenting to this class in some form or another. I think we're going on maybe 2 years now. I don't know, with this whole pandemic, time has just went out the window. But I really like being here because, first of all, the class always has great engagement. Obviously, prior to the pandemic, we were doing this in person, so it was always fun to be here. Now we've went virtual, and I think I do a good job of keeping up with the questions and everything, so feel free to type them. After each section or slide, I'll take a look and do my best to answer them because I really enjoy having this interacting. Obviously, we're in a virtual world. So please, throw out whatever questions you have. I've done this presentation often. I know it. You probably won't throw me off. Well, maybe you will because I haven't done it in 6 weeks, but it's all good. I'll get back on track quickly. But most importantly, I really like this material for this specific group. And by this specific group, I mean, entrepreneurial-minded, soon-to-be successful, intelligent people that I'm speaking to today, right? But also independent contractors. Because what we're going to speak about today, and a few things very high level that I'm going to touch upon, is I am going to educate you or further your education, if you know some of these things already, about how you can minimize taxes and maximize your savings for the future. These plans are specifically tailored or available for people who are not W-2, people who are independent contractors. So yes, it's going to take a little bit of discipline, right? And a little extra work on your end to set these plans up. But once you set them up, the benefits will benefit you more, not to be redundant, than someone, who is a W-2 employee and has access to a 401k plan and things of that nature. So I'm really excited to do that. All right, let's get started. Before I get started, little housekeeping. Now, again, I want to make sure I confirm with Lauren and Noel to make sure you all are getting this. But normally in person, I have refreshed and I still can't hear. Is anyone else having trouble hearing me? Because that was an issue, and that's why Tim keeps his screen open for me. You're loud and clear for me. Okay, thanks. No, okay, all good. All right, so for that one person, I apologize. Maybe take Laura's advice, signing off and signing back on. Thank you all. Housekeeping, investments and services. This is a menu. This is my contact information and a menu of all the things available to you, to my clients through Edward Jones. We do everything from retirement and college savings to plans for business owners, which we're really going to talk about today, wealth management strategies, all different types of investments, insurance annuities, and even banking options. All right. This is most important. Again, I want to confirm that all of you are getting a copy of this, and I will follow back up, and Paula will follow up. Paula's my assistant. This is really the slides that I'm going to present to all of you today were tailored for me doing a presentation to people who have an employer sponsored plan, right? Think 401k, 403b, 457. So every time you see that, we're really going to be discussing SEP IRA, Owner K, and Owner DB. So right now, I know it's a lot of terms and numbers thrown at you. Take it with a grain of salt, and I promise you I'm going to elaborate further when the time comes. But this is really important. These are the plans that are specifically available to you as independent contractors. Okay? Now we'll get to the slides. Excellent. All right. So let's warm up a little bit. As I said, is everybody familiar with the stock market? As far as just when you hear the news, whether it's Bloomberg, whether it's Channel 5, CNN, whatever, the market was up 1% yesterday. The market was down 1% yesterday, right? When we're speaking about that, they're usually speaking about one of two different benchmarks, the S&P or the Dow Jones Industrial. For all intents and purposes, does anybody want to take a stab on how much cumulatively up or down the S&P was over the 27-year time period, 1990 through 2017? Numbers are a little outdated, bear with me, but this was the most information that I could find. So a cumulative percent, up or down, 1990 through 2017. 20%. Thank you, Sebastian. Anyone else? Yeah, there we go, Gary. Up 300%. What's that, Philip? 10,000%? All right. 20%. Awesome. Same question, ladies and gentlemen, but for real estate. Home prices in the North Jersey metro area, New York City, Jersey City, White Plains. Same question, same time period. Real estate prices up or down, and how much during that time period? Anya, I don't even know what you're asking. Okay, we'll discuss that later. Stocks only go up. Nice, Brandon. Raul, 300%, plus 40%. We got a few more people typing. I'll give it a sec, and then 35%, up 400%. All right, I appreciate it. So the stock market, the cumulative gains in the stock market from the time period 1997 through 2017 resulted in a gain of over 700%. So was it Philip who said 10,000? Philip, I thought you said 1,000. Justin Casso, 1,000%. Justin, I don't know if you were talking about real estate or stocks, but I'm going to assume stocks, and you were the closest. So great. While real estate prices, ladies and gentlemen, was only up 164%. So where am I going with this? I always love posing this question, especially to this audience, right? To real estate investors. When you get the more seasoned realtors, hands down, they're always like, oh, real estate's so much better than stocks, this and that, blah, blah, blah. So I like throwing this little curveball at them, But listen, the fact of the matter, one of the things that I preach when it comes to my investment philosophy is very simple. It's quality investments, properly diversified. All right. And that diversification goes across all of your investments. I wish success for all of you on this webinar, on this conference, and I wish all of you in your holdings to have diversification. I'm a big fan of brick and mortar. Obviously, I'm a little partial to stocks and bonds, right? Both of them have pros and cons, and the cons in real estate are outweighed by the pros in stocks and vice versa. So it's about diversification. Owning stocks, though it's proven, is the biggest component to generating future wealth, while investing in real estate is probably the biggest upfront initial financial commitment you will work. So, I think it's easier to get started in stocks and bonds, and that's really what we're going to focus on here today. All right. So you mean a real estate is a quality investment better than stocks at the end of the day? Well, technically, based upon my numbers, stocks do have the larger cumulative gain, but obviously I'm a little partial to stocks and bonds, but I preach diversification. So, if you got little money to start with some mutual funds and ETFs, build up your stock portfolio, and then save for your first investment property, and then have a fully diversified portfolio. So with that said, what are we going to be discussing today? 3 things, ladies and gentlemen: why save for retirement, why save now, and how you can save. Ooh, I jumped it. One more question for your participation, and then I'll leave you all alone and I'll continue talking. Other than learning real estate, why have all of you chosen to this class today? What is the end goal? Make money. Thanks, Gary. Self-reliance. I love it. David, cash flow. Jason, make money. Awesome. For all those people that are answering and that have answered, why do you want to make money? That's self-reliance. What is the end goal? Throw me, you always see those commercials, right? What is your number? Self-reliance, work optional, retirement, to finally, in the future, be able to rely on all the savvy investments and hard work that you put in, and be able to pay yourself an income, not rely on somebody else, right? I want to enjoy life at a young age, not 65. Awesome. Anybody have some numbers out there that they have in their head? Change a career, would like to own property and have income for my future. Perfect, Jimmy. All great answers. Get better with money and investments. Financial freedom. Caitlin, I love it. Set my life. Good. Millions. Awesome. 2.2. Philip, love it. Financial, no cap and earn. Marissa, real estate is my passion. Good. All great questions. All right, awesome. I appreciate the participation. So let's go to it. Why save for retirement? Ladies and gentlemen, the fact of the matter is 33% of workers ages 55 or older have less than $25,000 saved for retirement. Okay. 54% have less than $100,000 saved for retirement. So let me, you have a way of us coming up with, Gary, I actually do, and that's part of the financial planning process. I'll circle back. Maybe I'll elaborate on that a little later before I finish up. Great question. So ladies and gentlemen, please let those stats sink in. All right. Philip was kind enough to throw out his 2.2 million number for retirement, or work optional is the word I like to use, right? In our professions, we can do what we do on our own schedule. We can probably do it for a while. We can work into our 60s, 70s, right? If we're doing it on our schedule. But at the end of the day, there is going to be an age where we want to check out. We don't want to rely on Edward Jones to send me my paycheck, or whoever your brokers are to send you your paycheck. We rely on our own investments, right? So whether your number is 2.2 million, whether it's a $500,000, 1 million, or 20 million, whatever that lofty goal is, at whatever age that is, the fact of the matter is people just aren't taking the steps now to have that money earmarked for retirement. And the stats prove it. 67% of workers, ladies and gentlemen, surveyed said they expect to work in retirement. I hear it all the time when I have financial planning conversations with people. You always get that one knucklehead who says, I'm going to work until I die. That's my retirement plan. False. If that's your plan, it's a bad plan. It's a terrible plan, because it's not going to happen. Out of 67% of workers surveyed said they expect to work in retirement. Actual only 27% of retirees actually report earning income in retirement, meaning they have to depend on their savings. Okay. I'm a big fan of working in retirement, but that cannot be your financial plan. Working in retirement is good. It keeps your mind sharp, okay? Keeps you physically healthy, mentally healthy. But, if you think you're going to work from 65 to 95, 30 years and be bringing in the same amount that you made from 35 to 65, it's a poor plan. You have to take steps in the present to save for your future. Okay. Average life expectancy. Okay, there's a 1 in 2 chance people are living longer. I always forget the stat. The average 65-year-old will spend almost 20 years in retirement. That's the average. About half this group will spend more than 20 years in retirement. Additionally, a 65-year-old couple has a 1 in 2 chance that at least one spouse will reach age 90 and a 20% chance that one spouse will reach age 95. Basically, as we all know, people are living longer, okay? Married couples tend to live longer. So if your goal to be work optional or to retire is 55 or 65, that's the beginning of the goal, ladies and gentlemen. You still have to ensure that you have enough money saved by that age to support you for the next 20, 30, possibly 35 years of your life, all right? The good news is you're not in this all on your own, all right? The role of Social Security is there, and the government does have some form of monies in place to help you. Approximately 40% of your retirement income will come from Social Security. Now, we could get into the debate whether Social Security is going to be around or not and this and that. Social Security will be around. But even if you believe it's not going to be around, it just furthers the point of me being here and elaborates on the sense of urgency that you need to take steps now to start building wealth for yourself in the future, right? There is one thing, if you take anything away from what we're talking about today, please write this down, www.ssa.gov. In the careers that I'm in and that many of you are considering pursuing, it's a commission-driven environment, right? That means you're going to have some good years and some better years, right? Your salary is going to wax and wane, and it's really not going to be as predictable as someone who is making a salary, 150 a year or whatever it is. So if something is as important as contributing to 40% of your future retirement savings, it's good to know how your present earnings is accruing and attributing towards that number. And the only way to do that is by logging on to socialsecurityadministration.gov, www.ssa.gov. No matter your age in this room, unless you're nearing retirement, age 62, right? Social Security doesn't send out paper statements anymore. So that's why you have to go online and create an account and see what your current historical earnings are and what your future Social Security benefits are going to be. Another reason to start saving for retirement, the impact of inflation. Is everybody familiar with inflation? The idea that your money today will not be worth as much tomorrow. Again, no matter the age range in this room, we've all seen and witnessed the effects of inflation. Everybody, you'll hear people talk about it in a gallon of milk, right? A gallon of milk in my day was this much, and now it's this much. We see it in sporting events, movie tickets, everything. We usually factor inflation to be an average of 3% a year. Okay, so in other words, the price of goods grow on average 3% a year. So using that formula, we can extrapolate and see how monthly groceries, healthcare, and a new car have risen and where it's projected to be by the time some of us may be retiring. All right. In 1982, monthly groceries for a family of 4 was $142. In 2008, it quadrupled to $553. Projecting this out to 2033, monthly groceries are estimated to be for a family of 4 almost $2,000. Healthcare, the biggest expense in retirement, but it's the expense that no one even considers or begins to think about until they're retired. 1982, 1386 per person. By 2008, it was up to 7804. In 2033, you're looking at some people's salary. That's how much healthcare is going to cost, almost 40 grand. And you can see a new car, 10K, 20K, 40K. So basically, ladies and gentlemen, what I'm trying to instill upon you or motivate you is to start saving now. All right. If you've already taken steps to save, I commend you. All right. But if you have that money sitting in cash, especially in the current environment over the last 12 months, 18 months, if it's sitting in a checking account, you are literally earning nothing on it. Okay. And often people come to me and, tell me they're afraid of loss of principal. If they have 100K, they want to keep that 100K in cash because it's safe. They can see it and they don't want to lose their principal. But what I have to educate them on and explain to them is every day that it sit there, they're losing to two things, that cash. They're losing to inflation and they're losing to taxes. So though they're not visibly seeing their 100K possibly go down to 99K or 90K or whatever it is, the price of goods are rising on them. And that 100K today isn't going to be able to buy as much as it would be able to tomorrow or down the road, right? Does all that make sense? And listen, I am a big fan of cash on hand. In fact, all of my clients, the first goal we speak about is emergency cash. But there are rules to that. If you're working, right, you have a good incoming salary, you want 3 to 6 months of on-hand expenses in cash. But anything over that number is being lazy. And I got to believe the people that I'm speaking to, the fact that you're taking this class, you're not lazy people, so your cash shouldn't be lazy either, right? So let me just go through some questions. 30 times the annual punch. Okay, so Gary, yes, I do. I answered you. I'll elaborate on that a little bit. I'll wait for it to come up with your number. Great, Katie. Katie, I'm so sorry you can't hear us. Retirement sounds boring. David, retirement doesn't have to be boring. I mean, that's the fun part of it. What do you want to do in retirement? And I don't like the word retirement, David. I like work optional, basically, financial freedom. You could use the words, yes, retirement as a definition does sound boring, but I'm sure, there are many things that you want to spend your free time doing where you're not attached to a job. And because you work so hard in the beginning of your life, you have the freedom to do what you wanted to. Retirement sounds very exciting to me when it's put in that context. All right. I heard Tim and then Chris gets on and I have nothing. Gary, how does the government look at independent contractors for Social Security qualifying? You're paying into it. You're paying FICA taxes for sure. That's why I really. Okay, wait, sorry guys. It's moving on me. Yeah, you're paying FICA taxes. You definitely are. That's something you'll do quarterly with your CPA. But that's why, especially in independent contractors, I really want you to be aware of how much you are paying into it and what you're paying into it equates to in the future. So Gary, SSA.gov, all right, definitely create that account. Do you believe the 4% safe withdrawal rate? I mean, listen, that's a quick off the number. Sure, and that's a general rule of thumb. And listen, that's one thing we do here at Edward Jones. We don't do a rule of thumb. We don't do generalizations. Everything we do here is personalized. Your goals are different from Gary's, are different to poor Katie's who can't even hear us right now, right? So 4% is someone just saying quick math and doing it. But the way we do is we understand what's most important to you. We try and factor in what you think your cost will be in the future, and we tell you what you need to save to get there. And then the withdrawal rate is almost, I want to say, irrelevant based upon the projections. But it's a decent rule of thumb. It's a safe, as I agree, but I think everybody's plan is different and everybody has personalized goals. How would you say we invest our money? Stay with me. That's in a couple of more slides. Great questions, everyone. With whom should we invest our hard money will be with whom we should invest our hard money will be the best option. Not with whom we should invest our hard money will be the best option. Can you clarify that? And I'll come back to it. All right. So we discussed some of the reasons to save for retirement. Now I want to kind of articulate why you should start saving now. So if time works against you when it comes to inflation, time is your friend when it comes to compounding. Is everyone familiar with compounding? Compounding is the reinvestment of your earnings and principal over time. Put very simply, ladies and gentlemen, the more time that's on your side, the more your money will grow. All right. So let's look at an example. You have four different people, each at different ages of their life with the same savings goal, right? So they have a savings goal of $400,000. And this math is assuming a 6% rate of return over the years. So an average of 6% per year. Okay. You have somebody who sat through this class at age 25 and they're like, 400 is my goal at 65. I can put away, what do I need to put away, Chris? You only need to put away $200.85 a month. All right. That same person, for whatever reason, delayed. They couldn't put away the $200. They had to wait to age 35. Well, now the amount that they have to put away just doubled to just under $400. That same person decided to wait 20 years. Now they're putting away close to $900 a month. The same person is one of those people in the first slides I showed you, 55 or older who have less than 100K, less than 25K. They have to put away the equivalent of a paycheck a month, $2,400. Bottom line, start early, invest often. Okay. The more you can do now, earlier on in your life, the more your money will grow. And that's because of compounding. Let's look at another example. All right, this highlights the cost of waiting. If you can't tell, we like to really reinforce our facts here at Edward Jones. So this chart assumes a 7% hypothetical return and assumes people put away $6,000 a year until age 65. All right, so we got a 30-year-old. They put away $210,000, $6,000 a year, 35 years, assuming a 7% rate of return over those years. That 210 compounded to just under $1 million. Let's just think about that, right? I'm asking you to save $210,000 over 35 years, and your money's going to grow to $1 million. That's pretty good. That same person, for whatever reason, waited 3 years to start his savings. So he deferred putting away, he or she deferred putting away $18,000, $6,000 over 3 years. That resulted in a difference of almost $200,000. So the $18,000 now that they couldn't put away wound up costing them, right, almost $200,000. And you can see the longer you wait, the less, the more impactful it is to the amount of savings you have. Let's go to age 40, 10 years. So that person deferred $60,000, $6,000 a year times 10 years, okay? And that resulted in almost half the amount that person has saved, right? So it's significant, ladies and gentlemen. Please, whatever you're doing, if you have some cash in the bank, start investing that money wisely, putting it in, and just the market's going to go up and down. I promise you, some years are going to be not so good. Some years are going to be very good. But over time, there is a positive incline within the market. Does all that make sense? Gary, I'm going to pull out my calculator, quick math, but I mean, listen, right off the bat, 10K, it moves too quick, 10K a year in 20, my chat's moving too quickly, 10K a year in 20 years, you're looking at 200K. I'll do it on my calculator real quick and I'll give you a good idea. I promise I'll come back to that. Robert, I was able to attain a total in 3 years on my E-Trade account, frequent and hold trading stock. I'd like to find the fund that can do better. That's awesome. And compounding daily. What else? What other questions? Okay, David, check audio sessions. Gary, now I'm too far up. Yeah, so far so good. Did the 400K on the previous slide come up for a specific reason? No, just an example, Jason. Just an example that my company made. So nothing there. Isn't there a 20% capital gains tax on all we make? Oh, Mindy, excellent question. Stay with me. I owe Mindy an answer. I owe Gary an answer, and someone else asked about investments. I don't remember your name, but stay with me because you all are setting me up very nicely. All right. In fact, Mindy, I think you're saving me up. You set me up perfectly. All right, let's get to it. So great. So hopefully, I motivated you or instilled some sense of urgency to start investing towards your future, right? However that may be. Um, I gave you some facts and figures to articulate the importance of starting as early as possible. But now I really want to get to the meat of the presentation and tell you how to do that efficiently. And by efficiently, Mindy, I mean in a tax efficient manner, i.e., minimizing your taxes now, and in a savings efficient manner, maximizing how much you can sock away legally without getting the IRS upset. All right. So, Mindy, in order to answer your question, capital gains tax, depending if you're over the 34% bracket, is 20%, but for most people, it's 15%. But don't worry about it, because when I speak about diversification, I want diversifications in your accounts as well as your assets, so we can defer any gains or eliminate them altogether. I'll elaborate in a couple of slides. So, ladies and gentlemen, most of you, if you're taking this class, whether you're changing careers, have a current career, considering this as a potential side career, whatever it may be, if you are currently a W-2 employee, I hope your employer offers some type of employer-sponsored retirement plan. That usually comes in the form of 401k, 403b, 457, basically different IRS codes for the same type of plan. And essentially, ladies and gentlemen, you can put away the lesser of $19,500, all right, or 100% of your compensation, plus a $6,500 catch up for those 50 and older. All right, so let's call it right now. Let's say you're 51, all right. You work for Best Buy. That's the building out here. They have a 401k plan, and you're serious about saving. You know you got 15 years. You understand compounding. You're putting away the maximum, $26,000 each year. All right, hold that number in your head. All right. Why I'm so excited and why I get so thrilled to be able to educate all of you on this is because if you are an independent contractor, yes, I realize you don't have access to an employer-sponsored plan, but you are able to still save for your future. And you could do that by setting up a STEP IRA, an owner-only 401k, and an owner DB plan. And why does that make me happy for all of you? Because what is the maximum amount that a 51-year-old can put away into a 401k plan? $26,000. They make $100,000, they can put away $26,000. If they make $200,000, how much can they put away? $26,000. One more, let's see if you're all paying attention. If that person makes $300,000, how much can they put away? $26,000. But wait, you're now an independent contractor and you sat through my class. If you didn't know this already, you were like, didn't Chris say we could set up a SEP or an owner 401k? What does that mean? Let's start with the SEP. The SEP, you can sock away the lesser of 25% of your eligible compensation, or $57,000. Okay. So let's use the person at Best Buy. He's in management. He works in the corporate office, he or she, and they make $200,000. They want to save as much as possible. They can only put away $26,000. That same person is an independent contractor, and their business is extremely successful. They sat through Tim's course. They learned a lot. They built their real estate portfolio. They're selling a lot of houses, and they made $200K that year. And that same person is 51. How much money can they put away if they made $200,000? The lesser of 25%, or $57K. They can put away $50,000. All All right. So up until about 250, give or take, they cap out at 57. But the point I'm trying to make is the more you make, the more you can sock away in a SEP IRA. And as you go down the line, owner K, owner DB, the numbers that you could put away get higher and higher. All right. For example, owner 401k, you can put away almost 63.5, and owner DB. When all of you are older and $1 million producers, please pick up the phone and call me. I'll help you set up an owner DB. You can sock away up to $250,000 tax deferred. All right. So I just explained to you how to maximize your savings in retirement. Now you're going to ask me, Chris, you also said something about minimizing taxes. Explain that. Well, what are some of the advantages of having an employer-sponsored plan and or a self-employed sponsored plan? The tax advantage is you put all this, the IRS allows you to put this money away pre-tax, okay? So you make 200K, you put away $50,000. The IRS says you only have to claim $150,000 on your taxes. Obviously, I'm dumbing it down, so bear with me, but it's that simple. Same thing with the 401k. You make 200K and you put away $26,000. You only have to tell the IRS you made 174 that year. So what you tell the IRS you made, because you saved most of it tax deferred before your taxes, you only pay taxes on that reduced amount. Does all that make sense? And all this money grows pre-tax, right? It grows, you put this money away pre-tax and it grows tax deferred. Yes, when you are ready to retire, or rather, nope, scratch that, I'm sorry. When you retire and you need to take this money, you are going to be taxed on it. But the idea is you are allowed to help present you by reducing your taxable income when you were young, when you were making money and being successful, save all of that for the future. And the idea is when you stop working, you should be in a lower tax bracket, so you'll be taxed on that reduced tax rate. Does all of that make sense so far? I'm going to let that sink in and look at some questions and comments. No, Mindy, I know what you mean for capital gains. Just again, stay with me. It's 15 to 20% long-term capital gains, ordinary income for short-term gains. But what I'm going to show you, there are certain accounts, i.e. like this, that you could set up where you could either defer gains or eliminate them. I.e., if you're trading in an IRA account, there are no tax consequences until you pull the money out. So you could buy and sell as much as you want and not generate capital gains. If you have a Roth account, even better, you can buy and sell with no tax consequences. And better, what I'm going to show everybody is when you take that money, all of it comes out tax-free. So again, ladies and gentlemen, diversification between stocks and bonds and your real estate. Diversification within those asset classes, and diversification across your tax buckets. You want a taxable account where, yes, Mindy, you'll get hit with capital gains, but you also want your tax deferred account, and you also want your tax-free account, which I'm going to elaborate on a little further. For Roth 401k, there's no tax when you withdraw after 59 and a half years old. David, Mindy, not on retirement, you will get taxed on your traditional, blah, 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 blah. Isn't there? Right. Okay. Thank you. Definitely worth putting money into retirement funds. From my experience, you are limited to certain funds you can invest in for 401k. The options, right. Yes. Correct, David. Yes. Thank you. Can you buy on margin? No, you cannot. At least not here at Edward Jones, Robert. Margin is for taxable accounts. Mindy, okay, for the SEP, you have to donate to employees. What if you do not want to do that? Oh, Mindy, I love it. You're getting really detailed oriented. Just for the sake of my time and the attention span of the class, let's speak after this. I can do a full assessment on what makes sense. You can do age restrictions, income restrictions, restrictions, hours worked restrictions, and then we could really speak about a SEP, a simple, owner DB, owner K. We can do a bunch of things if that's your concern. But if it's okay, that is something I would like to take offline. Richard, what if you need cash now for college? Richard, general question. I love the question. Need to know more to help you answer that. There's always strategies that we could work through. If you have a salary job and do yes, you can. Absolutely, Christina. As long as you're obviously going to have to file 2 tax returns, right? One for your one for Gary. I didn't forget about you, bud. If you have Christina, yeah, you can. If you're working at a 401k, Christina can that was your name, right? Christina, you can sock away your 401k money when as you become a successful realtor, right? You can have Christina W Realtor LLC, and you can file taxes under that and save that money. Obviously, that's an easy answer, not knowing your tax situation. I would defer to your CPA, but you can do it. Just because you are putting in a 401k does not preclude you from having a self-employed retirement account. All right, good questions. No, David, I mean, listen, that's the old age adage, right? That's what we do, a cash flow analysis. There's only so much money to go around. And obviously having money now to live over investing is extremely important. But the goal is to try and understand what you're spending on and if it really makes sense, as opposed to sacrificing the future for the present. So how can we get checks if we have 401k from old jobs? Dennis, definitely need to talk about that. That's usually how I close. If you have 401k, you really got to get your hands on the statements and call some of those jobs and take control of that money. Okay. So I've hopefully inspired you to start saving and investing. Hopefully inspired you to start saving and investing as early as possible, even if it's a little amount a year. I gave you some tools on what type of accounts that will really maximize your savings and minimize your taxes. And I get it. All of this, and David, amazing. You actually set me up for this slide. You're probably just hearing want, just another addition to my line item, right? But to really highlight the value of a pre-tax contribution, okay? You have two people. Each of them take home $2,000 biweekly, $4,000 a month. Both of them are in a 28% tax bracket, right? One of them, both of them sat through this class. One of them said, you know what, Chris doesn't know what he's talking about, not going to save anything. I'm going to work until I die. Great. Good luck with that. $2,000 minus 28% tax bracket, $560. They take home $1,440. Some other person was like, Chris is making some sense, but I can only do $100 a paycheck. I commend you. You're taking a step in the right direction. For that 100 that I'm asking you, encouraging you to put away for your future self, your 100 is deducted before taxes. So 2,000 minus 100, all right, is 1,900. Your 28% is taken off that 1,900, which results in 532 to the tax man or the tax person. So your take-home pay is 1,368. So for the 100 that I'm asking you to put away, your net bottom line, you're only feeling $72 of it. So yes, still an impact on your bottom line, but you're saving 100 for your future and only realizing 72 of it. Make sense? All right, great. Somebody asked me, determine your risk. Choosing investments. Somebody did ask this question. I'm going to spend just a little time on it. When you're investing by yourself or with a trusted professional, there's 3 things you need to ask of yourself before you start investing. First, what is your goal for the specific bucket of money? 2, what is your time horizon associated with that goal? And 3, what's your comfort level with volatility? How comfortable are you watching the value of your money go up? Very comfortable. How comfortable are you watching it go down? I don't know. Emotion plays a big part in investing, and it's best to leave your emotions on the sideline if you can, to allow your money to make the best decisions that are right for your future goals. Ultimately, time horizon is the biggest factor. The more time that's on your side, ladies and gentlemen, right, the more growth oriented you have to be with your investments, right? Because your investments have to beat inflation and taxes. So you have to get a 4, 5, 6, 7, 8% rate of return over the long term. The less time that's on your side, you have to be conservative, at least if you're working with me and asking for my opinion, right? Because you never know when March 13th is going to hit and the market drops unexpectedly 40%. You never know when December of 2018 is going to hit and the market drops 19% in a month. So that's why when your time horizon is short, you have to be conservative no matter how aggressive you think you are. When time is on your side and you have more time, you need to be more growth oriented to allow for compounding and allow for the averages to take over with the ups and downs, right? Does that make sense? Once you have the answer to those three questions, goals, time horizon associated with those goals, and your comfort level with volatility, you can build a portfolio objective. And basically what that is it's the proper allocation between stocks and bonds. Longer term investors with more of a higher tolerance for risk are in that growth focus area, 80% in stocks, right? Or growth oriented investments, whether they be mutual funds, ETFs, or individual stocks, 20% in bonds or fixed income, right? As you get closer to your goal and your time horizon gets shorter, you take less risk off the table and you become more conservative in your portfolio. So you go from 80-20 to maybe 65% in stocks, 35% in fixed income. As you get closer, you go to 50-50, and depending on your comfort level with risk, you may stay there or you may even take more risk off the table. So here's two examples, growth focused portfolio and a balanced growth and income portfolio. Growth focus is approximately 80% in equity, 20% in fixed income. And then within those sleeves, we have proper percentages for international, aggressive, large cap, mid cap, things of that nature. Balanced growth and income is 50-50. That's a high level on how to choose your investments. Obviously, we could get more specific with each individual person. Okay, so the beauty of all this, I gave you some type of accounts to open up as hopefully to take advantage of if you're working for an employer with a 401k, 403, 457. If you're self-employed, SEP, owner K, owner DB. But additionally to that, and this goes back to Mindy, I know Robert mentioned this, a few other people, right? You can also start individual retirement accounts in the form of a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA. A traditional IRA is similar to all the accounts we spoke about. They're funded with pre-tax contributions. The earnings grow tax deferred, and you could put many different types of investments in there. There is a limit to what you can do with $6,000 plus $1,000 catch-up at age 50. Then there's a Roth IRA. We love a Roth IRA. A Roth IRA is a great complement to your tax deferred saving strategies. A Roth IRA does not help present us. It does not reduce our taxable income. It's funded with after-tax dollars, but all those dollars, ladies and gentlemen, grow tax-free. Let's go back to that one slide. I don't remember where it was, but where the 30-year-old socked away over 35 years, 210,000. And because they were able to achieve an average 7% rate of return, their money grew to almost $1 million. If all that money was in a Roth IRA, that gain, Mindy, right? That gain of almost $800,000, you could take out all tax-free. You don't have to give Uncle Sam a dime. That's pretty cool. Mindy, you're allowed to have multiple IRAs, but you're only allowed to contribute the aggregate of the IRS limit, which is $6,000. Additionally, I always like to mention this, Roth IRA, another reason to start saving early and investing often is because there's phase-out limits for the Roth IRA. And, if you live in the Northeast, which I'm assuming most of you do, you phase out very quickly for a Roth. I think, I don't know, they just changed it. For a married couple filing jointly, the phase out for a Roth is like 200K, give or take. So, it's a lot of money, but it's really not in this area. So take advantage of it when you can, when you're just starting to get, when you're early on in your career, maybe start saving in that Roth, because it will prove to be very beneficial to you in the future. And the phase out limit 2020, I got to get the update. Yeah, I was right. $206,000 for a Roth IRA. So, you only, is there a minimum age? No, there's not. I mean, you just have to be, you have to have earned income, Mindy, earned income. Obviously, if you're opening one yourself, you have to be at the state's age of majority, 18 or 21, to do it on your own. But as long as you have earned income above $2,200 and as much as the contribution, so let's say $8,200, you can start a Roth IRA. I'll repeat that again. How much saved a year for 23 years old to reach $1 million? So in that example, the 30-year-old over 35 years put away $210,000, essentially $6,000 a year. They got an average 7% rate of return, which is very conservative and very realistic. And their money grew to over $1 million. So ladies and gentlemen, that's it. 11:50. I appreciate your time. I'd like to close up. I'll go through and make sure I have some answers. Gary, I haven't forgot about you. Don't worry about it. If what I do like, and someone did ask this, Philip, I'll get to you in 1 second. Somebody asked about they got 401ks out there or something from old jobs. If many of you are in transition and you do have 401ks sitting out there, please, please, please take control of it. Look at the investments, make sure they're in line with your goals, time horizon, comfort level with risk. I've seen too many people who were sitting in cash for the last 15 years. Oh, how terrible is that? The returns that they missed out on. And I've seen the opposite. Too many people who are about to retire be in all equities, when they were ready to retire in March or April, and their money took a big hit. So, I'm happy to help you do that because, it's important to take control of your money. So if you have any other last questions, I'm going to put my information in the system. Let me look. Okay, no problem. Pierre. Let's see what else we got. I'm currently junior Lehigh. Yep, studying business. Is there a way I can get in touch with? Yeah, Pierre. Pierce. I'm sorry. I'm going to put my information into the. Sorry, guys. I'm losing my train of thought. I'm trying to think of too many things. I'll put all my information in the chat before I leave. Philip, cryptocurrency. Listen, no more than 5% of your total net worth. Again, you're speaking to me, and my investment philosophy by default is from my companies. Edward Jones. We are super conservative, Midwest company, right? Almost 100 years helping people achieve their financial goals. I mean, you hear the returns I'm quoting you, 4%, 5%, 6%. We all know we can do better with that, but we like to be very conservative. And cryptocurrency is an extremely speculative investment in our opinion. Okay. But if you want to take a gamble on it and you're asking me my opinion, no more than 5% of your entire net worth. Robert, good, sweet. What are they doing? Just copies are big four. Okay, good. All right. I think I got everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, I truly appreciate your time. I wish you all the best of luck on your test. You're in great hands with the school and with Tim. And just give me a couple of minutes. Gary, I'm going to get you an answer. I'm going to paste all my information in here. And take care. Tim, Happy New Year. Really good to see you.
You too, Chris. Always great to see you. Happy New Year back to you. Thanks for the presentation, by the way.
My pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, you're going to see my face. I'll try and mute myself, but I will hang up in a bit. I promise. All right.
All right, guys. We got about 7 or 8 minutes before we're ready to break for lunch. So we were talking about, sorry, Chris, if that's okay, just remove that. Good, okay. And that was broker's compensation. And the last point I wanted to make, and we stressed it already, is that all commissions, as we discuss, are always negotiable. I'll post Chris's contact info if you didn't get it yet. And if he does, I'll just copy it and I'll repost it at the end of the day if anybody wants it. So all commissions are always negotiable. Now we finish that point, then let's move on. Now, your compensation, you salespeople, remember, your broker gets paid at the closing. Your pay comes within 10 days after the broker gets paid. So there's Chris's information. You can take a picture, highlight it, copy it, do whatever you want. But I'm going to, once Chris is done, lock the conversation so it's going to be up there for you guys to see during the lunch break. So again, salesperson's compensation is earned, obviously, when the deal is negotiated, but it doesn't get paid until the closing. The broker collects his commission at closing and then has up to 10 days in which to pay the salesperson for their share of the commission split. So can you provide us with a copy of Chris's presentation? No, I'm sorry, I don't do that. It's up to Chris to decide if that's shareable or not. And again, and as far as I know, like our information, it's pretty much probably copyrighted. So Chris would have to give you express permission to do that. And I can't do that for Chris. I'm sorry. So also your compensation, as I said, most likely you're going to be on a commission split agreement with the broker you're going to work with. Now, there are some brokers out there, believe it or not, that will pay you a small, very small not even living wage, like $4 or $5 an hour for a couple hours a week to do your job. You're not going to live on that, guys. Maybe you can buy some smokes with it or something, but that's about it. Boy, is that old school or what? Who says that anymore? Well, I'm an ex-smoker, so I'm all about that. But anyway, you're going to get very little money. You're going to have to earn your way to prosperity. And Chris is going, so I'm going to lock the conversation real quick. So if you want to get copies of info, it's on the screen now. Take a picture, highlight it, copy and paste it, do whatever you want. But once that's gone, it's going to be gone. So get your info now. Also, remember, your broker must pay you within 10 days of the closing. If your broker doesn't pay you, it's time to split and find another broker who's going to work ethically and legally. Yes, there are some brokers out there who unintentionally, supposedly, delay commission payments to salesperson because of a bookkeeping issue or something. That's always a bunch of hooey. The fact is, your broker is required by law to pay you within 10 days after he gets paid. So now, how do I create agency relationships with buyers and sellers? Well, number one, it's easily accomplished through a written agreement. A written contract is usually the best way to go to establish an agency relationship and what it means. By the way, in your textbook on page 34 through 38 is an example of a New Jersey Realtor approved independent contractor agreement. You as a salesperson, this is the boilerplate that you would need signed by your broker and authorized by you through a signature to go to work for a broker. It covers all the required elements of an independent contractor agreement. If I were you, I'd become familiar with this because a broker may offer you an independent contract agreement to sign and you want to know how it stacks up against what it's supposed to. You can always compare it by this one in the book. All right. So creating agency relationship, and we'll end on this point for lunch and we'll come back and finish up this chapter, and then we got chapter 4 to go this afternoon. We'll still get you out on time, don't worry. So you're going to sign an agreement, a buyer's agency agreement with a buyer or a listing agreement with a seller. On page 40 in your textbook is an example of an exclusive buyer's agency agreement. So here's what's going to happen. We're going to break for lunch now, guys. We got an hour for lunch at 1 o'clock. I'll rejoin you. During that time, again, Lauren or Noel, one of our office staff, will come on and answer your admin questions. But I'd like you to see if you can read through the buyer's agency agreement, because I'm going to have some questions after lunch about what's in it. And you should be familiar with it because your broker is going to want you to have these signs with buyers. So lunchtime coming up in the next minute or two. Lauren, Noel are going to get online, talk to you about admin questions. I'll leave the information about Chris Stern up as long as Noel or Lauren, whoever's going to work with you. In fact, I'm going to open up the conversation. I'm not going to answer questions right now, but I will when I return at 1 o'clock. So once again, if you have questions, save them to 1 o'clock. If you have admin questions about where to find stuff, how to do stuff, Lauren or Noel will be on in a minute or two and talk to you about that stuff. So, and please, during lunch, try to read that buyer's agency agreement. We're going to have a couple Q&A after that's done. So I'll see you guys at 1 o'clock, and in the next minute or two, one of the gals will jump on and answer your questions. So I'll see you at 1.
Hello, everybody. Oh, look at this long hair. Hi, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Wow, I thought today was Wednesday. Wow. Anyway, happy Tuesday. I hope everybody loved the presentation with Chris. He is awesome. He has a wealth of knowledge. So, what I'm going to do, well, first of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Lauren. I am the education coordinator for the school, and I hop on every day at lunchtime to answer any administrative questions that you may have. So while I wait for the questions to come in, I am going to write a couple frequently asked for. Hi, Brianna. It's Lauren. Hi, guys. So my name, again, let me just introduce myself one more time. So my name is Lauren. I am the education coordinator for the school, and I hop on at lunchtime to answer